Chapter 1087. The Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect. Everyone held their breaths as they looked at the dignified, middle-aged man who appeared on the screen of light. Elder Longshan was stronger than the Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect. However, Elder Longshan's appearance was a little lacking. He looked like an old man next door. Only the Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect could be considered a peak half-saint. Sect Master. Tung Guisho let out a sigh of relief and shouted, "Sect Master, save me." The Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect said. It was just a single syllable, but it made everyone feel like the earth was trembling. "Didn't you all go to kill the bastard who killed my grand disciple? Why are you here to save me? Could it be that Bantan Simeon has made a move?" The Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect asked. Although he was doubtful, his expression was still as calm as an ancient well. No, no. Hearing this, Tung Guisho only felt that his face was flustered. Before he left, he had made a solemn vow to the elders of the Medicine God Sect that he would return with the head of the Heavenly Sun Clan. In the end, he hadn't found Tianyang's head, but someone else was going to take his head. It's Yang Tian. This Yang Tian was hiding his strength. Yao Yaohui's report made a serious mistake, causing us to underestimate him and force us into a desperate situation, Tung Guisho said angrily. Also, this Yang Tian ambushed us. Luo Qiangshu died in that ambush. Luo Qiangshu is dead. Hearing this, the Sect Master of the Medicine God Sect, who had been expressionless, suddenly had a flash of light in his eyes. It was terrifying to the extreme, as if it wanted to devour everything in the world. Seeing this terrifying gaze, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Their entire body froze on the spot. Only Elder Longshan, Yinan Feng, and the other minor saint alchemists could move freely. Yes, Tung Guisho replied, while a complacent and resentful expression suddenly flashed within his eyes. Luo Qiangshu was personally recruited by the Medicine God Sect's Sect Master to be a martial Dao protector. Although Luo Qiangshu was only a protector, he wasn't too far away from becoming an elder. The Medicine God Sect Master had originally wanted to use him to relax, which was why he had sent Luo Qiangshu out. Furthermore, he even had the 3 elders of the Soaring Serpent Sect protect him in the dark. In the end, Luo Qiangshu was dead. Even though the 3 Soaring Serpent Elders would also be punished, the first to die would definitely be Yang Tian. All right. Hearing this, the Medicine God Sect Master's expression turned completely cold. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space as it landed on Tianyang. "You are Yang Tian?" The Medicine God Sect Master said with a cold expression. Hearing this, Tianyang was expressionless and did not say a word. "You dared to kill my grand disciple and the martial genius that I nurtured. And now, you've even forced us, the 3 Soaring Serpent Elders, into desperate straits. Such a sin is enough to overflow the heavens." The Medicine God Sect Master said coldly, as if he was the only one in this world who was the strongest. His words were the law of the world. "I'll give you 3 choices. 1. Kneel on the ground, cripple your own cultivation, break your own limbs, and brand your back with the mark of the Medicine God Sect. Enter the Medicine God Sect and become an eternal slave. 2. Offer your soul and enter the Medicine God Sect. You'll still be an eternal slave, but you'll retain a shred of dignity. 2. In your own life." The Medicine God Sect Master said indifferently, his tone filled with the dominance of an order. This was the Medicine God Sect Master, a peak half-saint. In this world, there weren't many who dared to go against the Medicine God Sect Master. Those who disobeyed him were mostly dead. Seeing this, the tens of millions of people fell silent. All eyes were on Tianyang. Bantan Simeon hadn't made a move yet. Clearly, he didn't want to risk offending the Medicine God Sect to save Tianyang. In other words, Tianyang had no one to rely on. He was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. "Why don't we choose the second option?" Someone finally spoke, his face full of regret. "Although the second option will also be a great humiliation, he'll be able to preserve his cultivation and live like a normal person. Compared to the first and third options, it's much stronger. The medicine god sect also needs geniuses, and a genius like Yang Tian is exactly what they need. However, if he offers his soul, he won't be able to control his own life and death. However, from the looks of it now, this seems to be the best choice. Someone else spoke, his tone extremely pessimistic. The crowd fell into a strange silence. They had witnessed Tianyang's rise. Now, they had to witness Tianyang's fall to the bottom. As for the Dragon Mountain Elder, he struggled for a long time before finally letting go. No matter what, Tianyang had still slapped Bantan Simian in front of the myriad pill cannon. If he made a move now, Tianyang wouldn't be able to join Bantan Simian. What was the point of making a move? As for Jiang Lin, Jin Daoping, and the others, they could only be anxious like ants on a hot pan. There was nothing they could do to change this. This was a dead end. Sorry. At this moment, Tianyang's slightly smiling voice broke the silence. Oh. The medicine god sect master looked up. Have you thought about which option to choose? I'll choose to destroy the medicine god sect. Tianyang smiled lightly. In the next moment, rays of sword light gathered in his hand. The sage realm sword Dao, the Dao of life and death, and a myriad sacred Dao erupted at this moment. Rolling dragon power broke through the sky. What? Hearing this, Tung Guisho was stunned, thinking that he had misheard. In the next moment, the sword light in front of him told him. He hadn't misheard. Boom! The sword slashed down. Tung Guisho, who had no defense at all, had his neck instantly cut off. Tianyang grabbed his primordial spirit and swallowed it into Tianyang's soul sea. In the next moment, Tianyang waved his hand. A powerful suction force erupted. Tung Qingshan and Tung Wuqing, who had been killed by Tianyang, were sucked in by Tianyang. Kid, what are you doing? Seeing this, the medicine god sect master's expression changed drastically. Billowing sage aura erupted. However, it couldn't affect the light at all. This was only a light screen. It had no effect. What else can I do? I'll kill your people right in front of you. Tianyang smiled. In the next moment, he withdrew the great void sword embryo. He took a step forward and grabbed Tung Qingshan's neck with his right hand. You are dead. Tung Qingshan's face was filled with rage as he roared. Unfortunately, you can't see. Tianyang smiled and exerted force with his right hand. Boom! Tung Qingshan turned into a bloody mist and died. His primordial spirit was still swallowed by Tianyang. No! The medicine god sect master roared madly. At this moment, Tianyang moved and arrived in front of Tung Wuqing. Similarly, he extended his right hand. Boom! Tung Wuqing's body exploded with an incomparably loud sound. A bloody mist dyed the sky red. Then Tianyang pointed a finger. Yao Yao Wei, who was hiding in the crowd and trying to escape, was easily killed. Yi Yuan dead. Luo Qiangshu dead. 2 elders of the medicine god sect dead. The 3 elders of the soaring serpent sect dead. Yao Yao Wei dead. Everyone from a medicine god sect in the vicinity of the 10,000 Pills sacred city was dead. Dead at Tianyang's hands. Seeing this, the medicine god sect master was completely enraged. Yang, heavens, why are you screaming? Tianyang curled his lips and slapped out. Bang! Chapter 1088. Dancineville, medicine god sect's prodigy, MO. Even the image of the sect master that Tung Guisho had summoned was destroyed by Tianyang. He had no scruples. How dare he? An expert shouted with a shocked and angry look on his face. The medicine god sect wasn't a supreme overlord in the Eastern Sky Divine Land, but it was still one of the top few. To some of the older generation of alchemists, the medicine god sect was the strongest existence after Bantan Simian. It was an existence that all alchemists below the minor saint grade had to bow down to. How dare he be so disrespectful to the medicine god sect? A white-haired old man looked furious. Is such a person worthy of being the champion of the myriad pill ceremony? Is that the roaming dragon pill emperor? Someone recognized the white-haired elder, and the anger that had just surged up calmed down. After all, the roaming dragon pill emperor was a famous alchemist in the Eastern Sky Divine Land. In terms of seniority, Even the Dragon Mountain Elder and Jean Tinqua were no match for the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign. Although the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign's alchemy cultivation base had barely reached the minor saint grade, the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign was still far from it. Although the roaming dragon pill emperor was only a minor saint grade alchemist, no one dared to be disrespectful in front of this living fossil. It was rumored that the roaming dragon pill emperor had not only experienced the great calamity of the demon race 10,000 years ago, but also the search for the myriad pills sacred canon's core 50,000 years ago. No matter what he said, the crowd could only let him be. Longshan, no one paid any attention to the roaming dragon pill emperor. His expression darkened as he looked at Elder Longshan. This kid has no respect for a senior like the Medicine God sect. I suggest we remove him from the position of champion. He's equivalent to the champion of the myriad pill ceremony. Strength alone won't do. This kid has talent, but no virtue. He'll definitely be a disaster for the Eastern Sky Divine Land in the future. Why don't we kill him now? The roaming dragon pill emperor said angrily. In his early years, the Medicine God sect had done him a great favor. Although it wasn't a great favor, the roaming dragon pill emperor remembered it in his heart. Because if he remembered it in his heart, coupled with his advanced age, then he would be able to create the image of a virtuous and respectable pill emperor who knew how to repay kindness. Because of this, the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign could also gain the respect of countless people and even gain benefits. Now, Tianyang was just a junior with no background. So what if he was strong? The roaming dragon pill sovereign sneered in his heart. This brat was already under a lot of pressure when fighting against the Medicine God sect. He didn't believe that this brat would dare to make a move against him. However, upon hearing this, everyone's expressions became extremely unsightly. What bullshit! All this time, Tianyang had only been acting in self-defense. The Medicine God sect had taken the initiative to take Tianyang's life. Could it be that Tianyang couldn't counterattack? The head of the Medicine God School had humiliated Tianyang to the extreme. Could it be that Tianyang couldn't return? According to the roaming dragon dance sovereign, anything done by the Medicine God sect is right. Even if Tianyang was killed, he couldn't disobey the Medicine God sect's orders. If the person who said this was someone from the Medicine God sect, perhaps the public would be able to accept it. However, the roaming dragon pill sovereign had nothing to do with the Medicine God sect. Do you think you can take advantage of your seniority just because you're old? Chun Lun growled, his face filled with anger. This roaming dragon pill sovereign was simply disrespectful. When the Dragon Mountain Elder heard that, a difficult expression appeared on his face. Kill Tianyang? Of course, that was impossible. Putting aside what would happen to the dragon faction behind Tianyang if he killed him. If he Bantan Simeon, it would be said that he was controlled by an outsider, and his reputation would be ruined. At that time, even he wouldn't be able to gain any benefits. However, if he ignored the roaming dragon pill sovereign's words, given the roaming dragon pill sovereign's seniority and influence, Bantan Simeon would be in great trouble if he raised his arm in the circle of elders. After all, no one expected the roaming dragon pill sovereign to interfere at this time. Roaming dragon pill sovereign, it was the Medicine God sect who made the first move. The roaming dragon pill sovereign snorted coldly and interrupted Elder Dragon Mountain's speech. Longshan, don't think that you can be impudent in front of me just because you're about to become an alchemy saint. You should know that I was the one who watched you step into the path of alchemy back then. Elder Dragon Mountain was speechless when he heard this. How was he supposed to respond to this? Besides, is Yang Tian a good person just because the Medicine God sect made the first move? The Medicine God sect must have their reasons for making the first move. Besides, it takes 2 to 2. This kid is definitely not a good person. The roaming dragon pill sovereign sneered. Everyone's expression turned even uglier when they heard this. At that moment, someone noticed that Tianyang's figure had suddenly disappeared. Where'd he go? Someone had a strange expression. In the next moment, space rippled slightly, and Tianyang's figure appeared in front of the roaming dragon pill sovereign without anyone noticing. How dare you come here? The roaming dragon, Pill, sovereign sneered when he saw Tianyong suddenly appear in front of him. Instead of following the orders of the medicine god sect master and committing suicide, you dare to rebel in front of me. I knew it. Someone who can be hunted down by the medicine god sect is not a good person. The roaming dragon, Pill, sovereign sneered. At that moment, the corner of Tianyong's mouth twitched slightly. It takes two to two. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Tianyong's body. It was as if there was a supreme dragon king behind Tianyong, baring its fangs and roaring ferociously. Wu Zun's fifth stage true origin was released at this moment. Then what do you think? Is this slap of mine going to make a sound? Tianyong smiled faintly and slapped out. Slap. An incomparably clear, incomparably loud sound suddenly exploded in midair. Instantly, the entire place fell silent. Stunned, even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. The slap landed directly on the roaming dragon Pill Sovereign's face. His old face did not have the slightest ability to resist and was directly smashed into pieces. Puffed. The roaming dragon Pill Sovereign spat out a mouthful of blood. In the next moment, he was directly sent flying by the slap. He was a Pill Sovereign, but his true origin cultivation was only at Wu Zun's 8th stage true origin cultivation. Moreover, Wu Zun's 8th stage true origin cultivation had relied on the accumulation of pills. Tung Qin Shan, Tung Ghost, and Tung Wuqing could casually grab any one of them to deal with the roaming dragon Pill Sovereign. Moreover, the roaming dragon Pill Sovereign was nearing the end of his lifespan. He did not have the slightest bit of strength left to block Tianyong's slap. Boom! The roaming dragon Pill Sovereign's body crashed heavily onto the ground. The surrounding people involuntarily opened up a large area. Then the ground collapsed. A huge pit with a diameter of several hundred feet appeared. At the center of the pit. Chapter 1089. Seeing this, everyone was dumbfounded. It had only been a dozen minutes. The shock that Heavenly Sun brought to them came one after another. He had killed Luo Qiangshu, the martial genius of the medicine god sect, in one hit. The three elders of the Soaring Serpent sect had killed Tung Qingshan and Tung Wuqing in one hit. Even Ghostly Hand Shadow had been killed easily. The sect master of the medicine god sect had also been killed by Tianyong. The image had even been destroyed by Tianyong. Now, the roaming dragon Elixir Emperor, who was of great seniority, had been slain by Tianyong. He had been slapped to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned on the spot. It was one thing to deal with the medicine god sect, but the roaming dragon Elixir Emperor, a respected senior in the alchemy world, had actually slapped him in the face. Moreover, it was not a simple slap, but a direct slap to the face. Come, let's ask the alchemy emperor to tell us if that slap was loud or not. Tianyong smiled faintly, revealing a faint smile on his face. The roaming dragon Elixir Emperor was fearless. If he had slapped him, he would have encountered endless trouble. What did it have to do with him? He cultivated the sword Dao, not the alchemy Dao. The alchemy Dao was only an auxiliary to the sword Dao. A swordsman would press forward with indomitable will. If he felt indignant, he would slash with his sword and destroy everything in his path. Now that the roaming dragon Elixir Emperor had spoken, Tianyong was very displeased. Therefore, Tianyong slapped him. How dare you? At this moment, the roaming dragon Elixir Emperor roared and flew out of the huge pit. The palm-sized piece of skin on his face was rapidly healing. After all, he was Wu Zun, a minor saint alchemist. He still had the ability to heal. However, what angered him the most was not the injury on his face, but the anger in his heart. Kid, I've changed my mind. You, hand over all the treasures on you now. Then break your own meridians and limbs and become my slave. The roaming dragon Elixir Emperor roared furiously. Ever since he created the image of a venerable senior, no one had ever dared to slap him in the face in front of so many people, but Tianyong did it. On top of that, he had slapped his face right in front of the crowd without any hesitation, completely disregarding the presence of the roaming dragon Pill Monarch. As a 50,000-year Pill Emperor, I command you. Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor roared furiously. The alchemy world was a world where seniority was very important, even though strength was the key to the alchemy world. However, the Wandering Dragon Alchemy Emperor had already created a certain amount of power through his ability to survive. At this point in time, power was equivalent to strength. Roaming Dragon Alchemy Sovereign still did not think that Tianyang would have the guts to attack him. In my opinion, Yang Tian, just admit your mistake. Both sides should take a step back. Although the Roaming Dragon Elixir Sovereign is in the wrong, he is still a senior. In front of millions of people, at this moment, the Dragon Mountain Elder slowly spoke. His heart was also incomparably shaken. Crazy. Tianyang was too arrogant. He had simply interpreted the word crazy to the extreme. He had disregarded the dignity of a half-saint and killed all the geniuses, elders, and protectors of the Medicine God sect. He had trampled on the Medicine God sect's face. Following that, without the slightest hesitation, he immediately made a move and sent the famous Roaming Dragon Pill Monarch flying. The Dragon Clan is indeed the Dragon Clan. In this world, I'm afraid only the Void Mountain and the Dragon Clan can run amok like this. The Dragon Mountain Elder side. The Void Mountain still has some rules. The Dragon Clan probably doesn't take the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor seriously from the bottom of their hearts. Take a step back. Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor's face immediately darkened. Longshan, don't think that you can order me around just because you're strong. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor will say it right here. If I don't deal with Yang Tian today, I would rather die than take a step out of Dansinaville. Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor roared furiously. Puffed. However, these imposing words were interrupted by an extremely untimely laugh. At that instant, the atmosphere of the place became extremely strange. If you don't do it, I won't leave. Tianyang laughed and pretended to cover his mouth. It seems that the great senior who has lived for 50,000 years is still a 3-year-old child. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. The corners of some people's mouths couldn't help but curl up slightly. Indeed, the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor's actions, no matter how they looked at it, it was like a 3-year-old's threat. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor could no longer sit still after being mocked by Tianyang. Brat, how dare you? In the next moment, Wu Zun's stage 8 aura burst out. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor's body immediately became illusory and shot toward Tianyang. I think you're not thinking straight. Seeing this, Tianyang's face returned to its usual indifference. His body flashed, and he appeared in front of the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor. Roaming Dragon Palm. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor roared and struck out with his palm. Wu Zun's stage 8 vital energy was released. This Yang Tian might be exhausted after the battle. Now is the best time for me to take him down and restore my prestige. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor was secretly delighted. However, the palm strike that he had just struck seemed to have hit a steel pillar. No matter how hard he tried, he could not move it forward. What's going on? The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor was puzzled. He looked up, and his pupils shrank to the extreme. Where did the steel pillar come from? It was Tianyang's fist. Tianyang's fist blocked the palm strike as if it had no strength at all. However, the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor could not move the Roaming Dragon palm even a little bit. It's my turn now. Tianyang suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand. The Roaming Dragon palm was instantly broken. The Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood. In the next moment, Tianyang grabbed his head. This slap is for what you said before. Tianyang chuckled and slapped him. Smack! The skin on his face that had just healed exploded again. Kid, seeing this, the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor was in pain and anger. Stop it now. Be careful that This slap is for your shameless act of taking advantage of your seniority. Another slap. This time, it was on the other side. Both sides of his face were smashed. His white teeth were exposed, and his blood-red mouth was exposed. Before the Roaming Dragon Pill Emperor could speak, he felt that air was leaking from both sides, and he could not speak. The anger on his face was still clearly visible. At this moment, Tianyang moved the vital energy in his hand. The skin on both sides of his face immediately healed at a terrifying speed visible to the naked eye. In a short while, it grew back again. This slap is for your arrogance and ignorance of the situation. Smack! After 3 consecutive slaps, the roaming dragon Pill Emperor was dizzy and saw stars. His mind was in a mess, and he could not even think of anything. Tianyang's 3 slaps were not just 3 simple slaps. They contained the secret technique of 7 stars. After these 3 slaps, the roaming dragon Pill Emperor was either dead or crippled. This last slap, it's my displeasure. Another slap was thrown. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The roaming dragon Pill Emperor spat out blood like a waterfall. His entire body flew backward like a broken sandbag and landed heavily on the ground. The roaming dragon Pill Emperor, a respected senior in the alchemy world. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, unconscious. Chapter 1090. Boom! The slap landed. The wandering dragon Elixir Emperor no longer had any strength to resist. He lay in a huge pit where he had been lying before and completely fainted. However, Tianyang did not kill him. It was not that Tianyang was afraid, but that the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor still had a half-step saint artifact protecting him. It was extremely troublesome for Tianyang to kill him through the half-step saint artifact. The Dragon Mountain Elder was watching from the side. Although Tianyang could completely ignore the Dragon Mountain Elder, he had to give face to Banten Semyon. To put it bluntly, killing the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor did not bring any benefits. Instead, it would cause a lot of trouble. Tianyang, who had always been too lazy to care about things, would not do such a thankless thing. You actually beat the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor up like this? At this moment, the Dragon Mountain Elder flew over to check on the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor's condition. He immediately gasped and looked at Tianyang as if he was looking at a monster. No matter how old and weak the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor was, he was still Wu Zun Realm Level 8. The difference between Wu Zun Realm Level 7 and Wu Zun Realm Level 8 was even greater than the difference between Wu Zun Realm Level 5 and Wu Zun Realm Level 7. In fact, the 3 Soaring Snake Elders' famous battle record of killing Wu Zun Realm Level 8 was somewhat exaggerated. Wu Zun Realm Level 8 was already seriously injured. Although he was stronger than the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor, he was not much stronger. Coupled with the fact that he was seriously injured, in terms of endurance, he might not be as good as the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor. However, the 3 Soaring Snake Elders also fought for a full 3 months before they killed him. From then on, they became famous in one battle, and their fierce reputation spread throughout the Eastern Divine Land. However, Tianyang killed the 3 Soaring Snake Elders in less than half an hour. He did not even use the slightest bit of strength to deal with the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor. After a few slaps, the wandering dragon Elixir Emperor was knocked out. This kind of strength, it was simply terrifying. What? Banten Semyon wants to intervene? Hearing this, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up, revealing a slight smile. Although he was afraid that Banten Semyon would disregard his reputation and attack him, Tianyang was confident that no one would be able to catch him unless it was a saint. If that happened, Banten Semyon would not be able to sleep all day. Letting a dual saint path peerless genius, especially one in Wu Zun's dual saint path, and a peerless genius of the Dragon Clan, leave would be a huge disaster. As for the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign, he was just an alchemy sovereign with an empty title and no strength. Banten Semyon knew what to do. No need. Seeing the slight contempt in Tianyang's eyes, the Dragon Mountain Elder sighed. The way the dragon race did things was indeed incomparably tyrannical. It was fine if no one provoked him. However, if someone provoked him, the lightest punishment would be Yao Yao Wei, who would be killed immediately. The heaviest punishment would be the Tongue She Elders. Not only would they die, but they would also be trampled on by their dignity. They would go from hope to despair, and finally die in pain. The roaming dragon alchemy sovereign would be lighter. However, the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign's reputation as a 50,000-year-old senior was also completely destroyed by Tianyang. To the roaming dragon alchemy sovereign, it was probably not much better than death. That's fine. Tianyang smiled. Then a cold glint flashed across his eyes. However, I don't want to hear that someone around me would deliberately take revenge. I, Bantin Simeon, can guarantee that I will protect Danseinaville. Although Tianyang did not finish his sentence, the Dragon Mountain Elder immediately read the cold glint in Tianyang's eyes. It was a cold glint. It was as if he had once slaughtered millions of people and killed everyone in the world. One look at him would make one shiver. Even an existence like the Dragon Mountain Elder could not help but tremble when he saw Tianyang's deep eyes. That faint murderous intent was secondary. The Dragon Mountain Elder had killed hundreds of thousands of people in his cultivation journey, if not millions. Ordinary murderous intent could not shake him, a peak half-saint. However, what shocked the Dragon Mountain Elder the most was, in the depths of Tianyang's eyes, there was a great terror between life and death. What exactly has this young man experienced? The Dragon Mountain Elder was puzzled, but he did not speak. After all, you are the champion of the Myriad Pills ceremony. Originally, I, Bantin Simeon, also have a certain obligation to protect your forces. The Dragon Mountain Elder seemed to have finally made up his mind to build a good relationship with Tianyang, this Wu Zun, the peerless genius of the Dragon Clan of the Dual Saint Path, and actually agreed. However, don't think about it. I will definitely not go to Bantin Simeon. Tianyang waved his hand. Then, he soared into the air and collected the space bags of the three-tongue, she elders, Yao Yao Wei, and the others who had fallen to the ground. Everyone knew that their spatial bags were Yang Tian's spoils of war. No one dared to move. Seeing this, Jiang Lin, Jin Daoping, and Wu Qingchun seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly looked at Tianyang. You're leaving? Tianyang nodded. Then, with a determined expression, he rushed madly into the distance. His speed was so fast that the naked eye could not catch him, and he disappeared. We'll meet again someday. Wu Qingchun laughed loudly. As for Jiang Lin, his face was full of smiles. Perhaps they themselves did not gain much from this trip to the Myriad Pill ceremony. However, Danseinaville's gains were incomparably great because of Tianyang. Hello, are you Danseinaville's quasi-elixir, Emperor Jiang? You're really vigorous despite your age. I'm the Li family's. I'm the Chuanwu sect's first elder. I wonder if Danseinaville is interested in having an exchange with my Chuanwu sect the moment Tianyang left. Countless people surged in like a tide around Danseinaville's trio. Among these countless people, not a single one was below Wu Zun's level. Each and every one of them was the head of an aristocratic family or an elder of a sect that could not be seen normally. Now, Danseinaville had the Myriad Pills ceremony's champion and the protection of Bantin Simeon. Even a medicine god sect could forget about doing anything to Danseinaville. Now, it was an incomparably delicious cake in high demand. Countless people were fighting over it. On the other side, the head of the Sief family stood alone. His face was full of regret. Why did he have to turn hostile so quickly and talk so much? If not for that, the person standing next to the Quasi-Elixir Emperor would be him. His Sief family would also receive the gratitude of Danseinaville because they had always supported Danseinaville. It was very likely that they would ride on Danseinaville's wave of wind and rise to prominence. Unfortunately, it was because he was alone. Gone. Some of the Sief family's allies were treated like they had seen a ghost when they saw the Sief family head. They did not even dare to get close, as if they were avoiding the plague. Danseinaville was about to rise. Such a thought suddenly appeared in everyone's minds. Impudent. Far away, Medicine God Sect. The Medicine God Sect's sect master's face was gloomy. The crystal ball on his armrest had been completely shattered by him. Men, your subordinate is here. In an instant, an old man appeared in front of the sect master. Wu Zun, level 9, announced to the public that the Medicine God Sect has issued the Medicine God Edict. Whoever reports Yang Tian's whereabouts will be rewarded. Chapter 1091. In the sky above the eastern heaven divine land, Tianyang's figure was leaping rapidly. Every time his figure flickered, he would traverse a great distance. The all-heaven sword is becoming more and more active. Tianyang's expression froze slightly as he looked at the all-heaven sword in his hand. Ever since Tianyang had broken through to Wu Zun's fifth-tier realm, the all-heaven sword, which had been dormant, had been constantly releasing waves of fluctuations, both strong and weak. Because the great Void Sword embryo had been upgraded to a quasi-saint weapon, its power was not any weaker than the broken saint weapon, all-heaven sword. Tianyang had not taken out the all-heaven sword for a long time. However, Tianyang would not forget the opportunities and life-or-death reversals that the all-heaven sword had brought. It's probably because its strength has increased to a certain level. Otherwise, the all-heaven sword would not have shown signs of abnormalities so quickly. Tianyang's expression darkened. The all-heaven sword was related to Shuntian Wuzuan. Tianyang had gained a lot from Shuntian Wuzuan. Now that Shuntian Wuzuan was suppressed somewhere, Tianyang naturally could not sit by and do nothing. However, where exactly is this Shuntian Wuzuan being suppressed? Tianyang's expression changed slightly. At this moment, waves of fluctuations suddenly bloomed from the all-heaven sword. The fluctuations carried a torrential amount of information that rushed directly into Tianyang's mind. In an instant, Tianyang seemed to have left this world and arrived outside the planet. His surroundings were pitch black, with only a few twinkling stars. In the next moment, the scene of the pitch-black galaxy changed abruptly. It was as if the camera had been zoomed in. In the depths of the pitch-black and deep universe, a towering giant palace was suspended in the air. There seemed to be countless experts suppressed inside, and a majestic and terrifying demonic aura swirled around it. In the next moment, the scene changed again. In the deepest part of the huge hall, in a large prison, a man with disheveled hair and a powerful aura, with a soaring temperament, had his limbs bound by demonic aura shackles. There was no venomous or crazy smile on his face like the other experts. Instead, it was a strange smile. As if sensing something, the man raised his head. Although he was riddled with wounds, one could still see a bright smile on his handsome face. At this moment, a cold snort that sounded like thunder suddenly sounded out. In the next moment, everything around him shattered, and Tianyang's consciousness also returned to his body at this moment. Was that the place where Shuntian Wuzuan was suppressed Shuntian Wuzuan? Tianyang's face was solemn as he carefully recalled everything that had happened. The moment the man raised his head, Tianyang recognized him. Although it was vastly different from the cultivation image provided by the all-heaven sword, its aura remained the same. It was Shuntian Wuzuan. In other words, that cold snort was either from the demon exalted heavenly transformation demon exalted or another demon clansman. I didn't expect Shuntian Wuzuan to be suppressed in the depths of the starry sky. Tianyang sucked in a breath of cold air. His expression was extremely grave. The myriad worlds were located in the starry sky. To set foot in the starry sky, one had to be at least Wu Zun's level of cultivation. Only then could one pass through the world barrier and reach the Milky Way. However, that was just reaching the Milky Way. Wu Zun, who had just broken through, would not be able to stay in the starry sky for long, let alone find an unknown prison. Even Tianyang had to rely on the uniqueness and power of the divine wilderness heaven spirit art to search all the way to the Shintian Great World, a world rich in spiritual qi. Others who had broken through from the Tianshao Great World would probably cultivate in the surrounding great worlds until they reached a certain level before returning. To enter the starry sky and roam the myriad worlds, one had to be at least at the peak of Wu Zun's level of strength. With Tianyang's dual sacred Tao power, he might not even need to be at the peak of Wu Zun. However, Tianyang would only be sending himself to his death if he went. Where's that? Tianyang suddenly asked after a long moment of thought. He knew that the spirit of the all-heaven sword was still there, but it was extremely weak. the dark underworld's soul prison. The all-heavens sword sent him a message. It was just a few words, but they seemed to contain the pressure of a giant mountain. They pressed down on Tianyang's heart. The dark underworld's soul prison, the depths of the starry sky. Rescue Shintian Wuzuan. I thought it would take a long time, but it looks like it won't be long now. Tianyang took a deep breath and continued forward. He flew in the direction of the eastern Xian state. Let's go to the immortal level first. Ha ha! I didn't expect the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao to have such a martial technique. The fire burned fiercely. The mansion at the foot of the mountain, which had been passed down for countless years, had been turned into fuel for the fire. Outside of the flames, several hundred people had surrounded the several tens of people. Painter Wang Yang, you finally can't help but make a move? Zhang Tianda was severely injured and weak. He couldn't even catch his breath when he spoke. He spat out a mouthful of blood as soon as he finished speaking. The three Wuzun realm level 6 heads of the painter, Wang, and Yang families were no match for him. Even if he had Tianyang's guidance and learned the chaotic 8 extremities blade from the Wang family's plaque, it would still be the same. Of course, the head of the Yang family smiled disdainfully. Only a fool like you would be so naive as to think that the Wang family can survive. It's all that Yang Tian's fault. Zhang Tianqing suddenly screamed. If he hadn't killed Wang Tianrui, Yang Wei, Hua Changqing, and Hua Qingyan, these families wouldn't have attacked us. Zhang Qingqing, look at what kind of disaster you've brought back. Zhang Tianqing roared madly. Hearing this, Zhang Qingqing's face turned pale. Could it be that he had made the wrong choice in bringing Tianyang back? But if it hadn't been for him, how could Zhang Qingqing have brought back so many treasures from the Saint's Cave abode? How could the Zhang family have seen through the chaotic 8 extremities blade in the plaque? Now, they had used the resources from the Saint's Cave abode to cultivate the chaotic 8 extremities blade, but now they were insulting Tianyang. They haven't even made a move, and they're already fighting among themselves? Seeing this, the head of the Li family showed a hint of disdain. As expected, the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao that once dominated Sichuan City is already a thing of the past. Zhang Tianda, hand over your blade technique and kill yourself. The rest of the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao will leave Sichuan City. We can still spare your Zhang family of Heavenly Tao. Otherwise, the head of the Li family sneered. The second half of his sentence was self-evident. On the side, the heads of the Hua family, Yang family, and Wang family also showed a hint of viciousness on their faces. Once the Zhang family was destroyed, they would be the ones to take the resources. Hearing this, Zhang Tianda's face turned pale. What was the difference between the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao and the destruction of the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao? A wise man submits to circumstances, the head of the Wang family said calmly. At this moment, the figure passing by in the sky suddenly paused. This is... A young voice came from the sky. Who's there? This is the Wang family's business. Those who have nothing to do with this leave. Hearing this, the head of the Wang family's expression changed slightly. Now, the 4 major families were working together to deal with the Zhang family of Heavenly Tao, who would be so reckless as to interfere. I remember now. However, the person above did not seem to care about the head of the Wang family at all. I forgot to teach you a lesson back then, and you're still taking advantage of me. All right then, Tianyang chuckled and casually slashed with the all-heaven sword that he did not have time to retract, piercing heaven and earth. Then he activated his movement technique and flew toward the eastern Xian state. Below, countless rays of true ether burst out. The 4 heads of the Wang family, Li family, Yang family, and Painter family narrowed their eyes. They used all their strength and roared in disbelief, trying to block this attack. However, it was useless. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The heads of the Wang family, Li family, Hua family, and Yang family were all killed. The 4 heads of the Wu Zun State Level 6 were all dead. This! Zhang Tianda was instantly stunned. On the side, Zhang Qingqing was so excited that she was about to jump up and down. Chapter 1092. After that strike, Tianyang channeled his ethereal force and sped up again. To Tianyang, the Zhang family of heavenly Tao was just a small interlude. It did not matter if he helped them or not. However, Tianyang felt that he owed them after seeing Zhang Qingqing's naked body. That was why he had used that strike. Now, all the grudges had been settled. As for how shocked and regretful the Zhang family of heavenly Tao would be, it had nothing to do with Tianyang. Why has Master Yang been in the Longevity Heavenly Lake for so long? Chen Bufan stood at the entrance of the Longevity Heavenly Lake with a grim look on his face. This was the 4th time he had come here this month. Even if the Longevity Heavenly Lake is extremely powerful this time, it's impossible to cultivate for so long. It's been more than half a year. Chen Bufan looked worried. Meanwhile, an immortal-level elder who was standing aside sneered. Oomph. I've already said that the Longevity Heavenly Lake should not be given to outsiders. Outsiders do not have the blessings of an immortality realm. The Longevity Heavenly Lake has a spirit and will naturally bless those who have the blessings of an immortality realm. Those who do not have the blessings can only be left to fend for themselves. Maybe that Grandmaster Yang has already been teleported to some corner and won't be able to come back. The level 4 elder, Wu Zun, sneered. He was one of the people who had opposed Chen Bufan's decision to give the Longevity Heavenly Lake to Tianyang. However, at that time, Chen Bufan was a newly appointed official, and he was the son of the previous realm lord, so he couldn't say anything. Now, it had been more than 9 months since Tianyang had stepped into the Longevity Heavenly Lake. However, there was no news at all. It was not that Tianyang had not thought of contacting Chen Bufan. However, the Black Heaven Great Worlds Communication Token was more powerful than the Tianshao Great Worlds Communication Token. However, the distance between the Eastern Sky Divine region and the southern region of the Eastern Black Continent was countless miles. No matter how powerful the communication token was, it was useless. If the Longevity Heavenly Lake quota is given to the acting Realm Lord, Hua Xiuxian, Xue Qian, or Yang Feidao, we'll have a new fighting force. But now, the immortal-level elder looked at him in disdain. The immortal Heavenly Lake is such a great place for cultivation, and he gave it to an outsider. I still don't know if I'll be able to come back. Hearing this, Chen Bufan's face suddenly turned frighteningly ugly. However, he couldn't say a single word. It was a cultivation mystic realm, not a killing mystic realm. Even the Heavenly Longevity Lake in the past was capable of communicating with the outside world. It was impossible for him to break through, but Tianyang couldn't possibly take 9 months to break through. Ha ha! At this moment, a burst of laughter was heard. It's been so many years since we last met. I didn't think that the little brat from back then would have already become an acting territory lord. An arrogant laugh was heard from the sky, and it suddenly reverberated throughout the entire immortal level. Hearing this, Chen Bufan's face changed slightly, and the immortal level elder beside him immediately looked terrible. This voice, it's the Shanghai sect's 3rd elder. Wu Zun was a powerhouse at the peak of LV's 7th state. Hearing this, Chen Bufan's face also changed abruptly. The Shanghai sect's 3rd elder? Why would a powerhouse of that level come to the immortal level? Although the Shanghai sect and the immortal level were not like fire and water, there wasn't much of a difference. At this moment, another cold laugh was heard. In the next moment, a figure stepped out of the space and came to the side of the Shanghai sect's 3rd elder who had spoken previously. His face was cold and indifferent. The aura emitted from his body was even stronger than that of the Shanghai sect's 3rd elder. Wu Zun was at LV8 state, the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling. Instantly, the immortal level elder's face changed drastically. Any one of these 2 people would be a terrifying almighty that could shake the entire Dongxian state. Now, these 2 people had actually appeared together, and it was when the immortal level leader was in seclusion. I wonder why the 2 of you have come to the immortal level. At this moment, a figure flashed. The immortal level 1st elder's eyes flashed as he spoke. It was as if he was facing a formidable enemy. After all, whether it was the Songhai sect or the 18 bandits of Yunling, they were not on good terms with the immortal level. It's nothing. Hearing this, the Songhai sect's first elder snickered and then looked at Chen Bufan. I remember that back then, I watched him grow up behind your immortal level leader. Hearing this, the immortal level first elder was puzzled, but he was still a little annoyed. This was his immortal level acting leader, and this was what he said the moment he opened his mouth. Was he suppressing him right from the beginning? I didn't expect that after growing up, he could kill the Songhai sect's first elder. The next sentence made the entire immortal level fall silent. The Songhai sect's 8th elder's eyes revealed a trace of murderous intent, and his words were extremely cold. I also want to know where my 7th elder went. At this moment, the first elder of the 18 bandits of Yunling, who had been silent all this while, spoke slowly. His face was covered by his loose hair, and it was impossible to tell whether he was a man or a woman. His voice had no power at all. However, coupled with the faint aura of Wu Zun's level 8, it was different. Then it was different. Damn it. Why did it have to be at this time? Seeing this, the immortal level first elder's face instantly turned extremely ugly. The immortal level peak territory leader Wu Zun was still in seclusion. If not, how would these two people dare to be so presumptuous here? But now, the territory leader was in seclusion. These two people indeed had the ability to behave atrociously among the immortal level. Although the first elder of the immortal level was half a step into sage swordsmanship, his cultivation base was only at level 8 Wu Zuns. To deal with the first elder of the 18 bandits of Yunling, he could use all his energy. As for the remaining Songhai sect's 3rd elder, although the immortal level was not weaker than the Songhai sect, if such an existence wanted to cause chaos among the immortal level, the Songhai sect's 3rd elders would not be able to stop them even if they had dozens of immortal level 3rd elders. Of course, we're not here to condemn you. After all, it's not good to start a fight between the 3 major forces. At this moment, the Songhai sect's 3rd elder chuckled. Unlike the immortal level, the Songhai sect's peak Wu Zun was not in seclusion yet. Even if the immortal level wanted to find trouble, they would not dare to find trouble with him. As for the first elder of the 18 bandits of Yunling, an immortal level who could be the first elder of the Yunling for dozens of years could not be found after dozens of years. Then what do you want? Hearing that, the immortal level first elder heaved a sigh of relief and said. On the side, Chen Bufan's expression changed slightly, as if he had thought of something bad. First elder, you must not agree to them, Chen Bufan hurriedly said, but the first elder glared at him. Shut up. How did this young acting territory leader know of the current crisis? Back then, the acting territory leader and Master Yang were among the people who killed my Songhai sect's elders. Similarly, the person who killed my 7th elder was also a Master Yang. The two of them spoke slowly. Suddenly, everyone understood. No. Hearing that, Chen Bufan's pupils contracted, and he hurriedly roared. Chapter 1093. Of course, the immortal level elder chuckled. Upon hearing this, Chen Bufan's pupils dilated as he looked at the immortal level elder in disbelief. This elder was the immortal level 4th elder. Why are you? He's just an outsider. As an immortal level, I don't care. Since you want revenge, what's wrong with giving him to you? The immortal level 4th elder did not care about Chen Bufan at all. Instead, he said with a smile, to the immortal level 4th elder, who is the current territory master. Although Chen Bufan was the acting territory master, to him, he was not intimidating at all. Only the first elder, who had been guarding the immortal level since the previous territory master, would value this immortal level acting territory master. As for him, he could not wait for Chen Bufan to die immediately to prevent future troubles. Now that there was a chance to weaken Chen Bufan's power, he would not hold back. Upon hearing this, the Songhai sect's 3rd elder and the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling were stunned. Although they thought that the immortal level would hand over Master Yang, they did not expect that. The immortal level would agree so easily. Is there a problem? This thought flashed through the mind of the Songhai sect's third elder, but he immediately denied it. Looking at the situation, it did not seem fake. Moreover, even if it was fake, so what? Would the immortal level dare to attack them? It's just that Master Yang is still cultivating in the longevity heavenly lake, so I can't hand it over to you. The immortal level fourth elder smiled. Great. With Chen Bufon's obstruction, the immortal level could not force open the door of the longevity heavenly lake. However, it would be different if the Songhai sect and the 18 bandits of Yunling came. For the sake of the immortal level would definitely not allow them to attack. When the time came, the longevity heavenly lake had to be opened even if they did not want to. The Tianyang inside had to die even if he did not. In this world, strength was respected. Chen Bufon, acting territory master, was respected. So what? His cultivation base was only at the pinnacle of Wu Zun's third level. Compared to the immortal level fourth elder, he was worlds apart. Only some of the former territory master subordinates and the neutral first elder would give Chen Bufon some face. Chen Bufon could not even order the others. This was the tragedy of those without strength. Now, if the longevity heavenly lake was destroyed and heavenly sun was killed, heavenly sun would be killed. The face of an immortal level would definitely be lost. As the acting territory lord who had been blasted open, Chen Bufon would definitely be under a lot of pressure. Grandmaster Yang, who had helped him win the position of territory lord, had also been killed. Huaxiao Shun or someone else would definitely be able to replace him. The current realm master was still alive, and the son of the former realm master wanted to turn the tables. The immortal level fourth elder glanced at Tianyang in disdain. Longevity heavenly lake. Hee, isn't this the immortal level cultivation secret realm? I heard that it's the most abundant spirit chi of heaven and earth recently. You immortal level people don't cultivate but get it to an outsider? Hearing this, the Songhai sect's third elder chuckled, his face revealing a trace of ridicule. He was mocking the immortal level for giving his own secret realm to an outsider. That's why I asked you to do it. The immortal level fourth elder smiled humbly. At the same time, he looked at Chen Bufon with wanton eyes. So what if he was the acting territory master? Now, he would still be humiliated and forced to open the secret realm's door. If Chen Bufon did not understand the immortal level fourth elder's intention, he would be an idiot. Looking at the immortal level fourth elder, his eyes burned with anger. This guy, faced with a great enemy, not only did he not resist, but he also led the enemy into the door like a traitor. If a war broke out for his own benefit, such a person would betray them immediately. If the great elder and fourth elder were tougher, and Chen Bufon was the acting territory master, no matter how strong the leaders of the 18 bandits of Yunling and the Songhai sect's third elder were, they would not dare to be presumptuous among the immortal level people. But now it was gone. Everything was gone. Thank you for your kindness, fourth elder. The Songhai sect's third elder sneered. He glanced at the silent, immortal level great elder and Chen Bufon. His eyes flashed with sarcasm. I wonder where the longevity heavenly lake is. It's a good opportunity for me to test the defense power of the immortal level secret realm. Once the longevity heavenly lake formation was closed, it could not be opened unless it was from the inside. Naturally, the immortal level great elder would not attack, and the fourth elder could not break it. Naturally, the Songhai sect's third elder had a reason to attack. It's not far away. Please follow me. The immortal level fourth elder laughed. He seemed to be talking cheerfully, as if the person in front of him was not a mortal enemy who had a grudge for hundreds of years. Instead, he looked like an old friend who had known him for many years and could talk cheerfully with him. His appearance was nauseating. Chen Bufon wanted to rush up and punch the Songhai sect's third elder, the leaders of the 18 bandits of Yunling and the immortal level fourth elder. However, the great elder had not said anything. What could he say? This is where the longevity heavenly lake is. However, a few minutes later, amidst the laughter of the immortal level fourth elder and the silence of the great elder and Shinbufan, they arrived at the longevity heavenly lake. Layers of forbidding auras surrounded it, as powerful and eerie formations were activated within it. Seeing this, the Songhai sect's third elder and the leaders of the 18 bandits of Yunling, who had come to cause trouble, were shocked. They looked at each other and saw the greed in each other's eyes. The energy waves, the longevity heavenly lake was not just an ordinary cultivation mystic realm. Then, please, the immortal level 4th elder said with a smile. Hearing this, the Songhai sect's third elder and the leaders of the 18 bandits of Yunling smiled devilishly. In the next moment, they attacked without saying a word. Wuzun's true core of Stage 7 and Stage 8 exploded in an instant. Vast ocean dust, shooting star warrior, the Songhai sect's third elder and the leaders of the 18 bandits of Yunling roared. They gathered their true core and attacked. They did not show any mercy. They did not care about Chun Bufan's and the great elder's ugly expressions. They directly attacked the longevity heavenly lake's restrictions. Boom! A loud noise was heard. In the next moment, the longevity heavenly lake's restrictions were destroyed. Only the last formation was still operating. There's still one left? Seeing this, the Songhai sect's third elder raised his eyebrows. It seems that the longevity heavenly lake's formation skills are not bad. This formation, the first elder of the immortal level looked at the formation and was confused. Since when did the longevity heavenly lake have such a formation? Again, the Songhai sect's third elder roared again. In the next moment, he threw out another punch. Boom! Smoke and dust filled the air and the space trembled. This space was almost destroyed by the Songhai sect's third elder. However, after the smoke and dust cleared, that formation was still standing tall and strong. What's going on? Seeing this, the Songhai sect's third elder narrowed his eyes and asked in disbelief. The immortal level 4th elder was also confused. Since when did an immortal level like him have such a powerful formation? At this moment, a chuckle came from the horizon. I was wondering why I felt that the immortal level was calm when the formation was attacked. Chapter 1094. Who's there? The immortal level 4th elder tensed up when he heard the young voice. His expression changed as he looked toward the source of the voice. However, he saw nothing. That was because the figure had already arrived beside him. The immortal level 4th elder broke out in cold sweat. That speed, how could it be so fast? Before he could react, Tianyang had already arrived beside him. In other words, in the fraction of a second that he took to react, Tianyang could have unsheathed his sword, sheathed it, and sheathed it. He could have killed him right there and then. Who are you? The leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling and the third elder of the Songhai sect looked extremely nervous. Although they did not know who the intruder was, however, looking at his aggressive manner, it was obvious that he was not a kind person. Master Yang, however, unlike the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling and the third elder of the Songhai sect, Chen Bufan was elated when he saw the figure. Tianyang nodded nonchalantly. Next, he turned to look at the heavenly longevity lake, which had been blasted away to the point where only a sturdy magic array remained. Seeing that, he frowned. I thought someone saw that my formation was not immortal level and decided to clean it up. So, it was 2 outsiders who destroyed your longevity heavenly lake? Tianyang said. Upon hearing that, Chen Bufan looked ashamed. As the acting territory master, he was held back by the 4th elder. He could not even protect his secret cultivation territory. If Tianyang had not arrived in time, the third elder of the Songhai sect and the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling would have done it hundreds of times. By then, the news that the immortal level longevity heavenly lake had been destroyed hundreds of times would have spread throughout the immortal level, perhaps even the entire Dongxian state. Master Yang, the immortal level 4th elder's face darkened. How dare you? Who gave you the guts to suddenly appear in front of this elder? The immortal level 4th elder was extremely arrogant. He looked at Tianyang in disdain and scoffed. You're just an outsider. How dare you do whatever you want in an immortal level? If you kneel down now, you might still have a chance to beg for mercy, the immortal level 4th elder said coldly. Previously, he had actually been frightened by a kid who hadn't even reached the 3rd stage of the martial arts realm, Wu Zun. He had even thought that Tianyang would be able to kill him. Now look, what a joke. Tianyang had to go all out to deal with Wu Zun, a 5th stage martial artist. What could he do to a peak 6th stage martial artist like Wu Zun? However, he was still frightened by Tianyang and broke out in a cold sweat. What a disgrace. You're going too far. At this time, before Tianyang could speak, Chen Bufan flew into a rage. He was the acting master of the martial arts realm, so he could not attack the elders. Moreover, he could not defeat them, so he endured it. However, had Tianyang done anything wrong from the beginning to the end? This immortal level 4th elder was extremely domineering. I think what the immortal level 4th elder said makes sense. At this time, the Songhai sect's 3rd elder, who had also broken out in cold sweat, had a look of agreement on his face. This Master Yang is too arrogant. Initially, we just wanted to bring him back to report on our mission, but now, let's let the immortal level clean up the sect first. I agree. The head of the 18 bandits of Yunling also spoke. Hearing this, Chen Bufan's face turned ashen, and he trembled with anger. These people were simply taking advantage of their power to bully others. You can't afford to offend these 3 people. Compared to the desolation Divine Hound Huang CK, they're much stronger. Although you won't be treated well in the future, cow down now. A man knows when to yield and when to stand tall. As long as you're alive, there's hope. At this time, the immortal level 1st elder spoke. Hearing this, Chen Bufan was instantly enraged, and his eyes were about to spit fire. A man knows when to yield and when to stand tall, so why not just kowtow? What bullsh asterisk T? Oh, at this time, Tianyang lifted his eyelids and looked at the 4 of them. He said calmly, "You haven't answered my previous question." What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then, the immortal level 4th elder sneered. Don't think that I'll let you go just because you're acting crazy. You should know that among the immortal level, disrespecting your elders is tantamount to treason. Treason means you're still so noisy. Tianyang spoke calmly, and then pointed his finger. Bang! The speed was extremely fast, and the terrifying glow of his finger exploded. Before anyone could react, the attack hit the immortal level 4th elder. Bang! The immortal level 4th elder spat out blood, and his chest caved in countless times. The sound of cracking could be heard, and many of his bones were broken by the finger. Whoosh! Bang! Like a cannonball. He was sent flying and landed hard on the ground. Arg! He spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, everyone, including Chen Bufan, was stunned. Perhaps they could imagine Tianyang's brazen attack. However, they could not figure it out. Tianyang was so fierce. He sent the immortal level 4th elder flying with just one attack. If the person who was sent flying was the 3rd elder of the Songhai sect or the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling, they could understand. However, what are you doing? The immortal level 1st elder was the first to lose his composure. Do you know who he is? He's the immortal level 4th elder. Are you trying to rebel by attacking him? The immortal level 1st elder shouted angrily, and the aura of a half-step saint spread out from his body. However, Tianyang had already mastered the saint's swordsmanship to an extremely high level. If he released it, even the immortal level 1st elder would be crushed. Naturally, he did not take the half-step saint's swordsmanship seriously. He's the most talkative one. If I don't hit him, who should I hit? Tianyang glared at the immortal level 1st elder. This is outrageous. Hearing this, the immortal level 1st elder was enraged. Was he sent flying just because he was talkative? If not for the immortal level 4th elder's powerful abilities, he would have been crippled. However, the immortal level 1st elder chose to ignore what the immortal level 4th elder had said earlier. Die. At this moment, the Songhai sect's 3rd elder shouted as he gathered the true ether in his hand. He shouted, "Vast dust." That was right. It was a sneak attack. He might not be Tianyang's match if they were to fight face to face. However, as long as he could kill Tianyang, it would be enough. So what if it was a sneak attack? The Songhai sect's third elder smiled proudly. The leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling had the same thought as him. A shooting star? The leader roared. At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyelids. Why are all of you in the Wu Zun state so weak? Then Tianyang raised his left hand. The Songhai sect's third elder felt as if his heavy punch had landed on an iron plate. Before he could react, a fist suddenly appeared in front of him. Boom! The Songhai sect's third elder's head exploded. He was dead. At this moment, Tianyang casually struck out with his palm. Thousands of dragon power gathered. At this moment, the Nine Heavens Imperial Dragon Technique and the Dragon King's Constitution were fully unleashed. This palm even carried some of the divine path of all creations. What? The leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling's pupils contracted as he hurriedly retracted his fist. However, the palm still landed on his chest. Boom! His entire body was sent flying like a cannonball. Chapter 1095. He had sent the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling flying with one palm. Not only was Chun Bufan dumbfounded, but even the great elder of the immortality stage had a look of disbelief on his face. How is this possible? Chun Bufan's cultivation level was still low, so he could not see Tianyang's cultivation level. Therefore, although he was shocked, it was not too exaggerated. However, the great elder of the immortality stage was Wu Zun, who was at the peak of LV8. He could completely sense the aura released by Tianyang the moment he made his move. Wu Zun was at LV5. For a young man in his 20s, this was indeed an incredible cultivation level. However, this cultivation level did not seem to be much in front of someone who had sent Wu Zun flying with one palm. After all, Tianyang was someone who could instantly kill the third elder of the Songhai sect, who was at the peak of LV7, and send Wu Zun, who was at LV5 of the 18 bandits of Yunling, flying with one palm. Cough, 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 cough. The leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling was indeed a bandit. He had countless life-saving items on him. He quickly took out a strange elixir from his space bag and consumed it, then threw away the shattered inner armor on his chest. Therefore, the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling was still alive after taking a full blow from Tianyang's body of the Dragon King and the Nine Heavens Emperor Dragon Technique. Cough, cough. Who exactly are you? The leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling kept coughing and looked at Tianyang in disbelief. Master Yang? Wu Zun was at LV3, a genius who could defeat Wu Zun, who was at the peak of LV4. Bullsh asterisk T. Not to mention that Wu Zun was at LV5. Even the latter was not credible. It was not difficult for someone with a lower cultivation level to defeat someone of a higher cultivation level. However, who had ever heard of someone above Wu Zun being able to defeat someone of a higher cultivation level than him? Furthermore, it was a one-hit kill. Wu Zun Stage 5, Wu Zun Stage 6, Wu Zun Stage 7, and finally, Wu Zun Stage 8. The slap ignored the difference of 3 minor realms, ignored the hundreds of years of accumulation of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge, and directly smashed him half to death. Even with the protection of his treasures, it was still not too comfortable. His internal organs felt as if they were being burned by flames. Who is it? Tianyang was stunned for a moment before revealing a smile. Yang Tian. You? Hearing this, the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling immediately revealed a trace of unwillingness. In the next moment, he forcefully stood up. Wu Zun's 8th-stage true essence was released. In an instant, the figures of the leaders of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge turned into afterimages and scattered in all directions. It seemed that there was something that was interfering with the senses of the origin spirit. He completely hid the figures of the Yunling 18 bandits. Heavenly Shadow. Seeing this, Chen Bufan's eyes narrowed. The leader of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge was forced to use the Heavenly Shadow. This is a terrifying secret skill that can allow one to recover for half a year after using it once. If you don't use it now, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to use it again. The great elder of the immortality stage spoke, his eyes filled with disbelief. Until now, he still did not understand. In the span of 9 months, how did Tianyang achieve such a leap in his cultivation? Die. Just as Tianyang calmly released the power of his origin spirit to sense the situation, a sharp and ferocious roar suddenly sounded from the top left of Tianyang. In his hand, an extremely sharp half-saint dagger that was shining with a strange purple light stabbed toward Tianyang. Divine poison dagger. Damn it. How can this guy use the divine poison dagger? Seeing this, Chen Bufan instantly turned pale with fright. The divine poison dagger was a half-saint weapon that was extremely sharp. Even a supreme-grade spiritual weapon could not withstand a few slashes from it. However, the most important thing was not the sharpness of the half-saint weapon. It was the terrifying poison on it that was known as the divine poison dagger. The poison on the divine poison dagger will kill anyone who touches it. This guy is finished. Seeing this, the great elder of the immortality stage shook his head and said pessimistically, "So what if he was strong? If he was weak, he would be implicated in the end and die in the hands of the person who should have died." Poison? At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyebrows and a strange smile appeared on his face. In the next moment, he stretched out his hand. A ball of pitch-black flame burned fiercely in his left hand. Poison? Level 7 Spiritual Fire. True Destruction Flames. With a punch, 10,000 flames burned the sky. The True Destruction Flames were originally formed by the fusion of various spiritual fires, from the weakest destruction spiritual fire to the newly obtained True Dragonheart Fire. Among them was the Level 5 Spiritual Fire, Infinite Poison Ghastly Flame. Perhaps to a Level 5 Spiritual Fire, the Divine Poison Dagger was a big bone that was difficult to chew. However, after being devoured by the 10,000 Godly Flame, the power of the Infinite Poison Ghastly Flame increased along with the power of the True Destruction Flames. The 10,000 Godly Flame did not just devour other flames and evolve them. In the process of evolution, it increased the characteristics of the original flames to the level of the evolved flames. The True Destruction Flames now had the characteristics of the Level 7 Infinite Poison Ghastly Flame. Ha ha ha! Do you think that spiritual fire is the nemesis of all poisons? You're courting death. Seeing this, the head of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge could not help but laugh sinisterly. His dagger was as fast as lightning and stabbed toward Tianyang. With the terrifying poison of the divine poison dagger, there was no need for it to pierce through Tianyang's body. It only needed to graze his skin and the poison would take effect. Tianyang would be poisoned to death. Burn! Tianyang roared, and the True Destruction Flames burned fiercely. 2 balls of destructive black flames burned on both his fists as he charged toward the divine poison dagger. You brought this upon yourself. Seeing this, the first elder of the immortality realm could not help but shake his head. He had already said that the poison of the divine poison dagger was terrifying. It would kill anyone who touched it. This Master Yang actually dared to use his fist to fight against the divine poison dagger, which was a half-sage weapon. He was simply courting death. No! Chen Bufan roared. At this moment, Tianyang's fist had already collided with the divine poison dagger. In an instant, the surrounding space exploded inch by inch. The fist that contained the power of the Dragon King and the terrifying spiritual fire devoured the divine poison dagger. Ha! Die! The head of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge laughed maniacally. The divine poison dagger in the True Destruction Flames emitted rays of brilliant purple light. However, Tianyang had a mocking smile on his face. The Level 7 Spiritual Fire might not be able to withstand it. However, the Level 7 Poisonous Spiritual Fire will have to devour your divine poison dagger as well. In the next moment, the flames burned wildly. The poison on the divine poison dagger instantly turned into gas and was absorbed by the True Destruction Flames. In the next moment, a violent fist energy was released. Boom! The head of the 18 bandits of Cloud Ridge's head was smashed by this fist. What? Seeing this, the first elder of the immortality realm's expression changed drastically. How is this possible? Even a half-step sage tool was used, but it still couldn't do anything to Heavenly Son? You actually killed him. The first elder of the immortality realm roared. Do you know that your actions will bring great trouble to the immortality realm? Hearing this, Tianyong coldly glanced at the first elder of the immortality realm. Idiot. Then, he soared into the sky and plundered the third elder of the Songhai sect's primordial spirit memory. Then he stepped out of the immortality realm. When he arrived in the Dongxian state, he locked onto a direction and flew quickly. Shockingly, that direction was the Songhai sect of the Dongxian state. Trouble? Chapter 1096. That was right. Tianyong did not come back to the immortal level to fight with a bunch of immortal level fools. He only came back to settle some unresolved grudges. The 18 bandits of Yunling were one of them. However, Tianyong had already killed their strongest leader. The remaining second and third leaders might have some strength, but they were just a motley crew that wasn't worth mentioning. The Songhai sect was also one of them. What are you going to do? The immortal level first elder and Chen Bufan hurriedly rushed out and looked at Tianyong, who was flying toward the eastern sky state. Their faces were full of disbelief. This guy, killing the Songhai sect's third elder and the leader of the 18 bandits of Yunling, was not enough. He wanted to kill his way to their hometown? Did he really think he was invincible? Get back here. The immortal level first elder was furious. This kid, who was only Wu Zun, dared to kill his way to the Songhai sect? Moreover, this Wu Zun, who was only at level 5, had sent the immortal level 4th elder flying with a finger. Although most of it was because the immortal level 4th elder was not as skilled as others. However, Tianyong's attitude of not caring about the immortal level from the beginning to the end made the immortal level first elder extremely unhappy. It was as if his dignity had been challenged. It was just Wu Zun who was only at level 5. What was he being so arrogant for? However, Tianyong did not bother to pay attention to him. He directly used the air step secret skill and fled at top speed. Bastard, how dare you ignore me? Seeing this, the immortal level first elder was so angry that his whole body trembled. This young Tian simply had no respect for his elders and was condescending. On the side, Chen Bufan did not say a word and hurriedly followed Tianyong. As for the first elder's anger, he could not be bothered. Since Tianyong did not do anything wrong, and the first elder did not have the ability to punish him, then what was the first elder? If he was angry, then so be it. If he angered himself to death, Tianyong would probably not understand. Damn it! Seeing this, the first elder snorted angrily and hurriedly flew in the direction of Tianyong. Just as the first elder was venting his anger on the spot, Tianyong had already used the air step secret skill. Coupled with the myriad body movement technique, he kept flashing in the air and approached the eastern sky state. Songhai sect. The Songhai sect was not close to the immortal level. Although they were all in the southern region, the distance between them was at least tens of millions of miles. Even first elder, the first elder, the first elders, and first the first elder. The first, the first of the first. Of the of his heavens, the have first. Of the first was first, the first, of the it the first. Then first and of course. Therefore, in less than 10 minutes, Tianyong arrived in the eastern sky state, outside the Songhai sect. The eastern sky state actually occupied a blessed enclave instead of opening up a cave abode. Tianyong narrowed his eyes when he found the location of the Songhai sect according to the memories he had devoured. Although this was the eastern sky state, it was still quite a distance away from the human settlements of the eastern sky state. Most sects would set up their outer gate in the city, while the inner gate was an independent space. However, the Songhai sect was lucky enough to find a blessed place in the Xintian Great World. Since it was connected to the Xintian Great World, it meant that the space was as stable as the Xintian Great World. It could even use the dragon vein of the Xintian Great World. However, this saves me some trouble. Tianyong's lips curled up. He was very lucky to find a blessed place in the Xintian Great World. But now, Tianyang was about to turn it into misfortune. Whoosh! Tianyang's figure instantly rushed out like an arrow leaving the bow, directly killing his way into the Songhai sect's main gate. The array that blocked the way was useless against a formation Tao Supreme like him. He broke it with one hand. As Tianyang's primordial spirit power continued to improve, Tianyang's formation Tao cultivation also continued to improve. Although it was not as terrifying as a Saint Realm Pill Tao, it was still powerful enough. He was only 2 or 3 steps away from the Saint Realm. Who's there? The moment Tianyang broke through the main gate, the disciple guarding the gate turned pale and looked at Tianyang, who had suddenly appeared in the sky. In the next moment, a sharp whistle burst out from the disciple's mouth. Enemy attack. Tianyang narrowed his eyes and glanced at the disciple guarding the gate like a hawk. However, he did not make a move. Just as well, he needed someone to come and die. Enemy attack. The moment the alarm sounded, the upper echelons of the Songhai sect's outer gate reacted. Our Songhai sect dominates the eastern sky state. We are completely different from the immortality realm, who can only be the overlord of the southern region of the eastern Xian state. Someone actually dares to attack our Songhai sect? Maybe it's a guy who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. There's no need for Master Lu to make a move. I can do it. A middle-aged man stood up and said to the old man who had spoken earlier, "That's right. Your strength is at the second level of Wu Zun's realm. Even if you can't deal with him, you can at least hold him back." Master Lu nodded, and the middle-aged man rushed out in the next moment. He sneered coldly in his heart. Enemy attack. Maybe you have some strength, but you picked the wrong time. Today was the day when the 4th elder of the inner gate, Master Lu, came to inspect the outer gate. As the leader of the outer gate, he might not be able to defeat the attacker. However, the attacker would definitely not be able to defeat Master Lu. Who are you? Tell me your name. In an instant, the middle-aged man saw Tianyang standing in the sky with a calm face. Sensing Tianyang's young age, the middle-aged man could not help but sneer. You're indeed an arrogant brat. Forget it. I'm too lazy to know the name of an arrogant person. Now die. The middle-aged man snorted coldly, and Wu Zun's realm second-level aura was released. He punched out. In your next life, remember that the Songhai sect is not a place where you can behave atrociously. Dragon Quake Fist. After waiting for so long, a piece of trash came. At this moment, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. He did not even bother to take out the great void sword embryo and directly slapped out. Rolling dragon power gathered, and this slap instantly turned into a huge golden palm that was dozens of feet wide. It swept towards the middle-aged man fiercely. What? Seeing this, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He could not believe it. This slap was completely capable of killing him. How is this possible? The middle-aged man did not hesitate and turned to run. How could this young man have such strength? He could not defeat him. Absolutely not. Trying to run? Tianyang raised his eyebrows, but did not move. We're almost there. Master Lu save. Seeing the sect leader's hall, where he was previously, the middle-aged man's face immediately showed signs of hope as he shouted loudly. Boom! Just because it was large didn't mean that it was slow. Master Lu had just heard the news and walked out when he saw that the middle-aged man was slapped into meat paste in front of him. Seeing this, Master Lu's expression changed drastically, and rage gathered on his body. Around him, there were even flashes of lightning that filled the sky. Who? It's me. A chuckle was heard. Master Lu immediately raised his head, and Wu Zun's realm 7th level aura burst out. However, he saw a fist print, condensing the power of the Dragon King, the Dragon Emperor's divine fist that destroyed true flames. Boom! Master Lu did not even make a move. He was hit by this punch. Chapter 1097. With one palm, the Songhai sect's outer sect master exploded into minced meat. With one punch, the Songhai sect's inner sect's 4th elder died instantly. In an instant, all the disciples of the Songhai sect who had witnessed this scene felt their hearts tremble. What happened? Isn't that Sanhai sect the overlord of the Eastern Sky State? Isn't it one of the top forces in the eastern part of the Black Sky Great Cosmos? Why is there someone who dares to attack us? With one kill, an outer sect master and an elder were killed. What a weakling! Tianyang retracted his hand and sighed. That Sanhai sect's third elder, who was at the peak of the seventh stage of the Black Sky State, was already no match for him and was instantly killed. The fourth elder's cultivation was only at the fourth stage of the Black Sky State, so naturally, he could not withstand it. The outer sect master was only at the second stage of the Black Sky State, Wu Zun. Half a year ago, Tianyang could have killed him in an instant, let alone now. However, although Tianyang knew this, he still felt a little bored. Too weak. You. At this time, the Songhai sect's outer sect vice-headmaster, who had just sensed the fluctuations of the battle, was dumbfounded. Looking at the ground covered in blood and flesh, he couldn't tell whose corpse it was, and his heart trembled. Someone actually dared to barge into the Songhai sect and kill the sect master and fourth elder in one go. Someone not only did not run after killing them, but also complained that the opponent was too weak. Where did this madman come from? I'll give you 30 seconds to call for help from the inner sect. Otherwise, don't blame me for barging in. Tianyang glanced at the inner sect dozens of miles away and said indifferently that Songhai sect's inner sect was separated from the outer sect by an abyss. The power of the primordial spirit could sense that the abyss seemed to have the effect of suppressing true Yuan. However, Tianyang did not care. His physical body could traverse the void, so why would he be afraid of the abyss? However, it would be difficult to break the inner sect's array, so Tianyang could not be bothered to waste the effort. Hearing this, the Songhai sect's deputy leader of the outer sanctum suddenly felt aggrieved. He was a dignified deputy leader. Who dared to command him like this? Even the sect leader would not be able to order him around so easily. 2. At this moment, Tianyang slowly spoke. In an instant, the deputy sect leader of the Songhai sect's outer sanctum disappeared on the spot. All that could be seen was a shadow dashing madly towards the inner sanctum of the Songhai sect. Compared to life, what was dignity? Tianyang didn't pay much attention to the Songhai sect's deputy sect leader, who had fled in an instant. Wu Zun was at the peak of the first heaven realm. For the current Tianyang, he could kill them with a single breath. What? At this moment, in the inner sanctum of the Songhai sect, when the elder who received the outer sanctum's deputy sect leader heard this news, his expression changed drastically. He looked at the Songhai sect's outer sanctum's deputy sect leader in disbelief. Someone actually dared to kill their way to the Songhai sect and even killed the outer sanctum's sect leader, the fourth elder of the Songhai sect? Moreover, they even let a deputy sect leader return to report the news. What kind of madman was this? Even when the Songhai sect had yet to gain a firm foothold in the Eastern Sky State and reach the peak where they dominated the Eastern Sky State today, no one dared to provoke them like this. After all, although the Songhai sect was not a sage sect, it was still a powerful force with the peak of the first heaven realm, Wu Zun, who was so blind as to dare to humiliate them. Someone actually dared to be so arrogant. The elder gritted his teeth. His eyes were filled with boundless fury. What did that person look like? It's a young man. At this moment, the outer sanctum's deputy sect leader, Wu Zun, who had been silently enduring the elder's anger, spoke in a trembling voice. It's just a young man who looks to be around 20 years old at most. However, not only did he break our outer sanctum's mountain gate array, but he also killed the sect leader with one slap. Even the fourth elder was killed by that person's punch. If he hadn't shown mercy, I would have died there by now. The outer sanctum's deputy sect leader trembled as he spoke. His entire body was trembling like a sieve. The image of Tianyang stepping across the sky, killing the sect leader with a wave of his hand, and killing the elder with one punch had been deeply imprinted in the deputy sect leader's heart. It was like a lingering nightmare that could not be erased. A young man, the elder did not pay any attention to the deputy sect leader's loss of composure. Instead, his face darkened slightly. A young man? In the next moment, his pupils constricted, and he stood up instantly. Someone who had a grudge against the Songhai sect and possessed terrifying strength that would directly kill someone from the Songhai sect. There were not many of them. However, there was only one young man. The elder swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked across the abyss in disbelief. It was as if he could see Tianyang standing in midair with a smile on his face. Yang Tian, didn't the third elder go to the immortal level to kill him? How is he still able to behave atrociously in our Songhai sect now? The elder roared in disbelief. In the next moment, he rose into the air and flew towards the center of the Songhai sect's inner sanctum. Yang Tian was able to walk out of the immortal level and directly kill his way into the Songhai sect, instantly killing the outer sanctum's deputy sect leader and the fourth elder. Such strength was no longer something they could deal with. We can only ask the second elder, the first elder, and even the sect leader for help. The elder roared in his heart. At this moment, before he could reach the sect leader's residence, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Sect leader. The elder stopped in his tracks and looked at the face of the Songhai sect's sect leader. His face was filled with ecstasy. You're finally here. Yang Tian killed his way into our Songhai sect's outer sanctum and killed countless outer sanctum disciples. Even the sect leader and the fourth elder were killed by Tianyang. Now, he purposely allowed the deputy sect leader to come and send us to our deaths. The elder roared and continued to draw fire for Tianyang. After all, the sect leader was a magnanimous person. Perhaps he would not attack Yang Tian. However, he purposely made Yang Tian sound so cruel. Even if the sect leader did not want to attack, he had to. Although Yang Tian was powerful, he was at most at the second elder's level. He was not a threat at all. However, Yang Tian was only weak now. What would happen in the future? According to the information from the various elders and intelligence personnel, Yang Tian was not even 50 years old. He had reached such heights before the age of 50. If he found a paradise and cultivated in seclusion for decades, or he could join some super sect, the Songhai sect would be in danger. Got it. As expected, what's coming will come. However, after hearing the elder's extremely exaggerated words, the Songhai sect master's face only revealed a trace of sadness and anger. It was hard to tell whether it was sadness or anger. Hearing this, the elder only felt that it was ridiculous. In the next moment, the Songhai sect leader took a step forward and went directly to the Songhai sect's outer sanctum. At this moment, countless cultivators were attracted to the area. All of them had the strength of Wuzun. They were watching from afar. There was a trace of mockery on their faces. Someone actually dared to challenge the dignity of the Songhai sect? Just wait for your death. Look, the Songhai sect leader is here personally, someone said. In the next moment, the figure of the Songhai sect leader appeared in front of everyone. Wuzun was at the peak of the 9th level. He was half a step into the same path. Even such a powerful person has appeared. This Yang Tian is dead for sure. Someone recognized Tianyang's identity and shook his head with a sneer. Wasn't it enough that he provoked the Songhai sect? Now he's here. He's simply courting death. There are also people who tried to belittle and curry favor with the Songhai sect. At this moment, Tianyang looked at the Songhai sect leader and chuckled. On the other hand, the Songhai sect leader looked at Tianyang with a complicated expression and took a step forward. At the beginning, we wouldn't have reached this stage. Hearing this, everyone raised their heads and stared at them without blinking. They knew that in the next moment, they would see the peak Wuzun make his move. For such a terrifying existence who had reached the top of the eastern sky state to make his move, even if it was an instant kill, it would be of great help to them. But now, the Songhai sect leader sighed and moved in the next moment. He lowered his head. Songhai sect leader Chun Songhai greets the champion of the Myriad Pills ceremony. Chapter 1098. Greetings, Yang Tian, Pill Emperor Yang. The Songhai sect master lowered his head and said in a low voice. However, although his voice was low, it was no less shocking than an explosion in the ears of the Wuzun realm cultivators. What did the Songhai sect master say just now? Some people were stunned on the spot and looked in the direction of the Songhai sect master in disbelief. It was as if they wanted to confirm whether what they had heard before was true. But now, the Songhai sect leader maintained his head down the entire time. He didn't even dare to raise his head. This level of respect was simply shocking. What did he say? The champion of the myriad pill ceremony? Some people noticed the important information in the Songhai sect master's words, and their expressions changed drastically. The myriad pill ceremony was a grand event of alchemy in the entire Xintian great world. Even if they were pure martial arts cultivators, they had heard of it and knew that the famous myriad pill ceremony had ended not long ago. Now that Songhai sect master had called Yang Tian the champion of the myriad pill ceremony. The meaning of his words was obvious. How is this possible? At this time, even the alchemy cultivators who had no opinion of Tianyang widened their eyes in disbelief and almost screamed. How the hell was this possible? The myriad pill ceremony was a grand event of alchemy in the entire Xintian great world, held by the sage sect Bantan Semian. In the past, even if the champion was not someone from Bantan Semian, it would be a huge alchemy force like the medicine god sect or the human alchemy sect. It was not something that forces outside of the eastern sky divine land could touch. However, a guy with no foundation, who even had an immortal level background, had defeated Dan Sinaville, the medicine god sect, and other alchemy geniuses and won the championship. This news was no longer as simple as simply unbelievable. It was completely unbelievable. The Songhai sect master is crazy. Several grade 7 alchemists looked at each other and reached a consensus in their hearts. At this moment, Tianyang spoke slowly. I didn't expect you to be so well-informed in the Eastern Sky region, Tianyang said with a smile. Hearing this, the Songhai sect leader's heart trembled, but he still did not dare to speak. The champion of the myriad pill ceremony was equivalent to half a Bantan Semian. Since ancient times, Bantan Semian had a tradition of protecting their own. As the leader, Yang Tian would definitely be protected by Bantan Semian. If he made a move against Yang Tian, the consequences were unimaginable. However, there's a high chance that the medicine god sect has issued some sort of kill order or bounty for me. Does that mean that Songhai sect master doesn't intend to take my head and give it to the medicine god sect for some reward? Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, everyone's hearts couldn't help but lift. This Yang Tian was simply a madman. That Songhai sect master was confused by fake news, yet he still dared to be so arrogant? Wasn't he afraid that the Songhai sect master would react and kill him in an instant? Everyone could also see the aura on Tianyang's body. Wu Zun was a 5th level cultivator. His talent was very high, but in front of an existence like the Songhai sect master, it was insignificant. I wouldn't dare. However, after hearing this, the Songhai sect master lowered his head even more. His face was full of fear and respect. He did not dare to resist at all. Bantan Semian. These 4 words were an imperial edict in the eastern part of the Xintian great world, bringing with it endless majesty. Perhaps Bantan Semian was not the strongest sect in the eastern part of the Xintian great world. However, it could still destroy the Songhai sect with a flip of its hand. TSK, how boring. I originally want to kill a few of your people before talking to you. Tianyang smiled faintly, then turned around and walked out. Since the Songhai sect master had already admitted defeat, it would be somewhat against the rules if he continued to kill. Even in the martial world, there were rules. The enmity between Tianyang and the Songhai sect had not reached the point where only one of them would be killed. Since the great pinnacle Wu Zun had humbly admitted his mistake, this matter was considered over. However, just because Tianyang did not care about it, it did not mean that no one else would jump out. Sect leader, what are you doing? The great elder, who had rushed over after hearing the news, shouted angrily. You have to know that you represent the Songhai sect. This kid killed our Songhai sect's geniuses and then killed countless of our Songhai sect's elders. How could such a person be allowed to live in this world? The Songhai sect's great elder shouted angrily as he looked at Tianyang, his face filled with murderous intent. One of the Songhai sect's geniuses that Tianyang had killed was his great-great-grandson. He was also the one with the most potential among his descendants. However, he had been killed by Tianyang. He had killed him so cleanly that there was not even a corpse left. "Kid, die!" The Songhai sect's great elder roared angrily. His figure was like an arrow that had been released from a bow as he charged towards Tianyang. Wu Zun's aura, which was at the pinnacle of the 8th stage, bloomed from his body. Streaks of lightning condensed in the palm of his right hand and smashed viciously towards Tianyang. Sword of 9 desolates. In an instant, Tianyang made his move. The sword unsheathed, slashed, and landed in one smooth motion. The Sage Stage, Sword Principle, and Wu Zun's 5th Stage, True Origin merged into one at this moment, erupting with a terrifying combat strength that far exceeded his cultivation level. Boom! The lightning and the Sword of 9 desolates collided viciously. The lightning mixed with the sword's radiance and shot towards the surroundings. Streaks of powerful and terrifying fluctuations tore the space in all directions. The abyss trembled, the mountains and rivers shattered, and violent winds surged. "Stop!" The Songhai sect's sect leader finally reacted at this moment. He roared and immediately made his move. Wu Zun's 9th stage, True Origin, bloomed at this moment. An aura that swept across the entire Eastern Sky State was released with a loud bang. However, this aura was not released towards Tianyang, but towards the Songhai sect's great elder. "Come back." The Songhai sect's sect leader made a grabbing motion with his right hand. The Songhai sect's great elder, who was in a state of extreme hatred, was instantly controlled by a huge force. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was pulled back. The Songhai sect's sect leader's grabbing motion completely disintegrated the next move that he had just completed. His true origin flowed backwards, causing the Songhai sect's great elder to feel so uncomfortable that he almost vomited blood. Sect leader, after taking a deep breath and calming the fluctuations in his body, the Songhai sect's great elder raised his head and roared angrily. "He's our enemy." "Now he's not." The Songhai sect's sect leader's face was filled with shock as he shook his head. The Songhai sect's great elder had made his move earlier on purpose. The Songhai sect's sect leader wanted to test Tianyang's strength. If Tianyang's strength was really weak, he would have killed him directly. Banten Simun would probably not attack the Songhai sect for a dead person. However, from the looks of it now, after blocking the Songhai sect's great elder's furious attack, Tianyang only took a step back. There was not the slightest change in his expression. This kind of strength, no wonder he dared to attack the Songhai sect directly. "It's my fault for not managing my subordinates properly. I'm sorry." The sect leader bowed his head. Upon seeing this, most of the Eastern Sky State's Wu Zun was incomparably shocked. On the second day after the Songhai sect sent the 3rd elder to attack the immortality stage, Yang Tian stepped on the formation, killed the outer court sect leader with a palm strike, and killed the 4th elder with a punch. He led the sect leader to appear and apologize. Chapter 1099. The sect master bowed his head, and the eastern sky was shaken. The strongest overlord force in the Eastern Sky State was none other than the Songhai sect. Even those in the immortality realm who had fought with the Songhai sect for decades, or even hundreds of years, had to admit that they were still weaker than the Songhai sect. But now, Tianyang stepped into the sky and killed the Songhai sect's outer sect master and the 4th elder, sweeping away the dignity of the Songhai sect. Even the Songhai sect's sect master had to bow his head in front of Tianyang. Such power and influence. Who among the younger generation could have such power? From now on, there will be another peerless genius in this world, someone sighed. At this time, the Songhai sect's sect master, Chun Songhai, looked at Tianyang, who was standing in the same place, and his expression changed slightly. "I wonder if Pil Emperor Yang, Sect Master Chun, you know why I'm staying here." Tianyang chuckled and said, Chen Songhai's expression changed instantly. Tianyang wanted to leave before because the world of martial arts had its own rules. Since he had admitted defeat, Tianyang had to leave. But after admitting defeat, he allowed his subordinates to attack. That was not within the scope of the rules. In fact, the so-called rules were bullsh**t. If Tianyang had the strength to slaughter the entire Songhai sect, why would he have to worry about the rules? That Songhai sect is willing, don't be willing. Let me take a look at your treasure vault. That's fine, right? Tianyang said with a smile, like the warm wind in spring and the golden sun in autumn. However, this warm and bright smile made the Songhai sect's sect master, Chen Songhai's expression turned completely ugly. As expected, this guy still took revenge. Chen Songhai's expression was extremely ugly. The treasure vault was an important place of the sect. Even the elders of the Songhai sect could not enter and leave at will. How could they let an outsider in? However, Tianyang was different. Putting aside Tianyang's frightening background, perhaps his status as the myriad pill ceremonies champion wouldn't be enough to shake the Songhai sect. However, Wu Zun, who was less than 50 years old, was a fifth-stage realm cultivator and a minor saint alchemist. He definitely could. Moreover, Banten Simyun was the champion of the myriad pill ceremony. At the very least, he would fight for Tianyang once. Once might not be much. However, it was more than enough to destroy the Songhai sect. Not to mention, Tianyang was also a minor saint-grade alchemist. What people feared the most about alchemy, Dao powerhouses, was never their martial Dao strength. Instead, it was the vast network of connections that he had accumulated through his powerful alchemy skills. Just like how every cultivator needed a handy weapon, every cultivator needed enough medicinal pills on their path of cultivation. A weapon might be able to be used for a long time, but a medicinal pill could be consumed in minutes. However, for most cultivators, medicinal pills were something that they couldn't do without. Medicinal pills refined by a minor saint-grade alchemist were extremely attractive to Wu Zun, who was at his peak and even a half-saint. If Tianyang bore a grudge against them, he would spend a few years refining a large batch of medicinal pills to recruit all the heroes in the world. The Songhai sect will be almost done for. All right, after some consideration, Chen Songhai finally nodded with a gloomy expression. Tianyang was not one of them after all. He could even be considered an enemy. Tianyang had killed several elders and prodigies of the Songhai sect. This had caused the Songhai sect's strength and potential to drop by a whole level. The Songhai sect had also repeatedly sent elders to try to kill Tianyang. They had even asked the third elder and the head of the 18 bandits of Yunling to join forces and kill Tianyang. But now, Tianyang had requested to enter the Songhai sect's treasure vault. As the sect leader, not only could Chen Songhai not refuse, he had to welcome him with a smile. Damn it! Chen Songhai's teeth were chattering. His face was so dark that anyone could see it. However, Tianyang did not care. He calmly stepped into the Songhai sect's inner sanctum. He and the Songhai sect had always been enemies. Chen Songhai was unhappy. What did it have to do with him? Or rather, the more unhappy Chen Songhai was, the happier Tianyang was. Don't worry. I'll go to your treasure vault and take something. Just take it as compensation for the mental damage caused by your great elder's attack. That scared me. Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, Chen Songhai was so angry that he almost wanted to smash the table. Compensation for mental damage? Did the great elder's furious attack hurt you at all? Other than taking a step back, what did you lose? That can't be called a loss. On the other hand, the Songhai sect's great elder was forcefully pulled back by Chen Songhai when he was about to make a second move. He spat out a few mouthfuls of blood due to the infusion of true essence. Now, the Sage Stage Sword Principle had invaded his body, and his internal organs were burning. You're telling me that you're going to pay for mental damage. However, Chen Songhai could only suppress the rage in his heart. He did not even dare to show it. Previously, the Songhai sect was powerful and domineering. They had killed countless innocent people and even held the blade to Tianyang's head. Tianyang was just retaliating. Now it was the same. Tianyong did not feel the slightest bit of burden in his heart. Transfer all the important things and put them in treasure vault number 2 or directly in the sect leader's residence. Chun Songhai led the way in front of Tianyong. At the same time, his primordial spirit fluctuated. Wu Zun's peak 9th level primordial spirit power surged and sent out a message. After giving the order, Chun Songhai turned his head and looked at Tianyong. He forced a smile and said, "Don't worry." Then, "Pill Emperor Yong, let's go. I hope that after this, I won't attack people if they don't attack me." Tianyong said indifferently and did not even look at Chun Songhai. Chun Songhai heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this, but he was still sullen in his heart. "You're so arrogant because of the Banten Simun's influence. If not for that, when has my Songhai sect ever been inferior to others?" However, he could only keep these words in his heart. Influence was also a kind of strength. Otherwise, the Songhai sect would not have sent so many elders to kill Tianyong. The Songhai sect's outer sect already occupied an entire mountain range. It was like an immortal's cave abode and was incomparably imposing. And the Songhai sect's inner sect was even larger than the outer sect. The 3 surrounding mountain ranges were like stars surrounding the moon, surrounding and protecting the Songhai sect's inner sect. Tianyong used his primordial spirit power and could vaguely feel the power of the dragon veins continuously converging here. No wonder the Songhai sect was so prosperous. These 3 dragon veins all stretched for tens of thousands of miles. Some are even tens of thousands of miles long. Even a trace of the power of the dragon veins was enough to allow a force to rise in defiance of the natural order. The Songhai sect occupied 3 of them. It would be strange if they were not prosperous. That's my Songhai sect's treasure trove. Chun Songhai came to the center of the Songhai sect's inner sect and looked at the towering pagoda in front of him. He squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. However, his heart was bleeding nonstop. What could be transferred in these few minutes? If Tianyong chose the most precious one, then his Songhai sect would really suffer a great loss. "Thank you in advance for your generosity, Songhai sect leader." Tianyong smiled faintly, as if he was deliberately disgusting. Then, he stepped into the giant pagoda. In front of the giant pagoda, Wu Zun's peak 6th level guardian elder stared fixedly at Tianyong. Then, he could only let him pass helplessly. Tianyong did not care at all and stepped into the giant pagoda. He could feel it. This giant pagoda contained the pure white bones aura that had caused his heart to palpitate when a myriad pill ceremony ended. And just as he stepped into the giant pagoda. Chapter 1100. The second bone. At the end of the myriad pill ceremony, Tianyong had chosen a flawless white bone. However, ever since the end of the myriad pill ceremony, Tianyong had studied it many times but still could not figure it out. He did not expect that there would be such a bone in the Songhai sect's treasure vault. That's true. The Eastern Sky State and the Eastern Sky Divine Land are not far apart. Moreover, this bone might not have been in Bantan Simun's possession since the beginning. Perhaps the Songhai sect was also involved in the secret realm that Bantan Simun explored. Tianyong raised his eyebrows and instantly understood. Then a light flashed in his hand. The flawless white bone appeared in his hand. Suddenly, the wave that seemed to resonate with him became incomparably intense. As expected, Tianyong smiled faintly, and in the next moment, he flew upwards. "Where did you come from?" However, just as Tianyong took a step forward, a disdainful snort came from the side. "Why haven't I seen you in the inner sect? Don't tell me that even new disciples are allowed to enter the treasury now." A mocking sneer sounded. Upon hearing this, Tianyong glanced at the person who spoke with an expressionless face. There was not a single hair on his head, not even eyebrows. His eyes, which were as thin as sticks, revealed a trace of disdain. His lips were slightly curled. Wearing the Songhai sect's inner sect disciple uniform, his arrogance and disregard for all living things was fully displayed. It seemed that he was a Songhai sect's inner sect disciple who had obtained permission to enter the treasure vault to choose treasures. Tianyong could not be bothered with him and lifted his leg to leave. Seeing the inner sect's eldest senior brother, not only did you not kneel and kowtow, you even want to ignore him? However, Tianyong did not expect that such an ordinary action would attract the disciple's attention. "Get back here!" The bald disciple roared and directly stretched out his hand, circulating his true essence. Wu Zun's aura of a peak third-stage martial artist erupted, and a rolling suction force gathered in the bald disciple's palm, directly locking onto Tianyong and pulling him over. Of course, he didn't succeed. Ridiculous. Tianyong glanced at the bald disciple and couldn't be bothered with him. In his opinion, the bone that could resonate with his blood was much more important than this insignificant senior brother of the Songhai sect. There were only two bloodlines in Tianyong's body. One was the dragon bloodline that came from cultivating the nine-tempering dragon physique. It had now evolved to the level of a dragon king, but it was only on the surface and had not truly integrated into Tianyong's foundation. One was to inherit the immortal bloodline from the immemorial great emperor, the immortal heavenly lord. No matter what kind of bone it was extraordinary. Damn it. Seeing that his suction force did not even move Tianyong's body at all, the bald disciple's face instantly darkened. "Kid who just entered the sect, don't think that you're amazing just because you stepped into the treasure vault. Now, your senior brother, will teach you some rules of the Songhai sect's inner sect." Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, the bald disciple's figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, a swift and fierce hand knife was aimed at Tianyong's neck. This hand knife condensed a huge amount of true essence. If a cultivator below the second-stage martial artist Wu Zun was hit, even if he did not die, he would be unconscious for half a year. The first rule is to kneel and greet senior brother Wu. "When you see me, Wu Wenjie." The bald disciple, Wu Wenjie, laughed wildly. It was as if he could see Tianyong's terrified eyes after he woke up after being unconscious for half a year under his hand knife. This hand knife had taught many new disciples a lesson. Wu Wenjie believed that this new disciple who looked extremely unfamiliar was no exception. "Senior brother?" Hearing this, Tianyong's interest seemed to be piqued. He glanced at Wu Wenjie. Then he flicked his finger. Wu Wenjie's hand knife, with all his might, was like snow meeting fire, instantly melting into nothingness. In the next moment, a strong suction force erupted and locked onto Wu Wenjie's neck. It sucked Wu Wenjie over. If I remember correctly, shouldn't the Songhai sect senior brother be called Zhao Haikong or something like that? Tianyong said. Hearing this, Wu Wenjie's pupils suddenly shrank, revealing a look of disbelief. Zhao Haikong died more than a year ago. Even if you just entered the sect, you should know. Moreover, if you don't know, how dare you call him by his name? Wu Wenjie roared in disbelief. In the next moment, he sensed the situation on his body, and his expression changed drastically. Legend has it that Zhao Haikong died at the hands of a young man. "You are Yang Tian." Wu Wenjie was indeed the newly promoted senior brother of the inner sect of the Songhai sect. Even though he was arrogant and unruly, he reacted at this moment. At such a young age, he had such strength and could easily subdue him. Even when mentioning Zhao Haikong, his expression was still so calm. Who else could it be other than Yang Tian, who is rumored to be the Devil King among the Songhai sect disciples? "Why are you in the treasure vault of the Songhai sect? Could it be?" Looking at Tianyong's calm face, Wu Wenjie's face suddenly turned pale. The Songhai sect's archenemy had come to the Songhai sect at this moment and looked extremely calm. He had nothing to fear. Could it be that the Songhai sect had suffered a terrible blow during his month of treasure selection? "Oh, your Songhai sect is fine. It was your sect leader who invited me in." Tianyong chuckled and casually threw Wu Wenjie's body aside. Although Wu Wenjie's strength was strong, he was still too weak in front of Tianyong. After being thrown by Tianyong, he was immediately smashed into the wall like a little chick, making a loud rumbling sound. Cough, 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 cough. Wu Wenjie kept coughing and even coughed up a few streaks of blood. He looked at Tianyong in disbelief. "Sect leader, you were invited in?" Suddenly, Wu Wenjie felt like his illusion had been shattered. What was going on? Not only was the Canghai sect's archenemy still alive, but he had also swaggered into the Canghai sect's treasure vault and even casually taught him, the senior brother of the inner sect of the Canghai sect, a lesson. And the Canghai sect leader was still outside. Perhaps he was still looking in awe. What was going on? For a moment, a crack appeared in Wu Wenjie's staunch loyalty to the Canghai sect. After casually teaching the senior brother of the inner sect a lesson, Tianyang couldn't be bothered with him. He instantly rose into the air and flew up to the top of the huge pagoda. Outside, seeing this, the Canghai sect leader Chen Canghai's heart was about to bleed. In the Canghai sect's treasure vault, the higher the level, the more valuable it was. As for Wu Wenjie, who had been taught a lesson, Chen Canghai couldn't be bothered with him. Chapter 1101. Canghai sect, the highest level of the treasure pagoda. Seeing Tianyang step into the pagoda, Chen Canghai and the others who were watching from outside felt their hearts bleed. Back then, Chen Canghai had immediately ordered the transfer of the treasures on the highest level. However, there were quite a number of treasures on the highest level that couldn't be taken away with an ordinary space bag. After all, they hadn't recognized an owner yet. If Tianyang took those treasures, perhaps the Canghai sect wouldn't suffer a great loss, but Chen Canghai would definitely be heartbroken. Those were treasures at the pinnacle of the quasi-saint level. They were the savings of the Canghai sect for tens of thousands of years. Now, Chen Canghai felt a little regretful. If Tianyang left, then so be it. Why did he ask the great elder to probe Tianyang's depths? This was great. It was easier to invite a devil and then to send him away. If Tianyang refused to leave, the Canghai sect wouldn't be able to do anything about it. They could only watch in silence as Tianyang walked to the highest level and strolled around leisurely. At this moment, Chen Canghai was extremely regretful. Why did he have to provoke this devil incarnate? The Canghai sect isn't very strong, and their bones aren't that tough, but their treasures are still pretty good. Tianyang casually glanced around the highest level and immediately revealed a faint smile. Obviously, 70% of the places here had traces of hurried transfer. Even if the Canghai sect gave in, they wouldn't be willing to suffer too much loss. However, the ones in the center couldn't be transferred away. The pinnacle of the quasi-saint level suppressing treasure, the purple gold bell, the Canghai sect is really rich. Tianyang smiled slightly and touched the purple gold bell hanging in the center with his right hand. It was emitting an incomparably heavy and vast aura. In Shuntian Wuzhen's memory, this thing was also a rare treasure. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that a pinnacle of the quasi-saint level was the most precious treasure of a sect without a quasi-saint. A pinnacle of the quasi-saint level was already extremely rare. Moreover, this pinnacle of the quasi-saint level was a suppressing treasure. Suppression, as the name implied, suppressed all attacks, even suppressing the person himself. If one was suppressed by the violet gold dark bell, then it would probably be impossible for one to escape unless one possessed a strength at the half-saint realm. Even if one could escape, half a layer of one's skin would be peeled off by the terrifying energy of the violet gold dark bell. However, the purpose of Tianyang's visit was not the purple gold arcane bell. Although the purple gold arcane bell was good, Tianyang was not very good at using it. Moreover, compared to the purple gold mysterious bell, the bone that could cause the Dragon King's bloodline or the undying bloodline to stir was the most precious existence. Here it is. Tianyang scanned his surroundings. The white and flawless bone in his hand emitted a faint light. At this moment, the wave that he had sensed had also reached its limit. In the next moment, Tianyang moved. His figure flickered like a phantom, and in the next moment, he disappeared on the spot and flew toward the depths of the highest floor of the giant tower. Outside, Chen Canghai and the others couldn't help but be stunned when they saw Tianyang's abnormal behavior. You saw the violet gold dark bell, but you didn't choose it? Chen Canghai said in disbelief. That was a peak half-saint weapon, the most precious treasure of the Canghai sect. Chen Canghai asked himself honestly. If there was a chance to snatch such an existence, even if the chances were slim, Chan Songhai would not be able to resist taking the risk and snatching it. Moreover, the current situation was not a snatch. Instead, he could directly take it away openly. With such excellent conditions, Tianyong actually did not take the violet gold dark bell, but flew inside instead. The depths of the highest floor were the earliest to be moved. Even if there would only be some leftovers or things of unknown origin that were useless. This point was somewhat similar to the Bantan Semyon. However, it was only similar in this point. However, because there were many treasures stored in the depths, and the energy was in disorder, there was no vision at all. Chin Songhai thought and frowned immediately. This treasure trove was not monitored by the Songhai sect everywhere. The treasure trove was originally a place that contained all kinds of powerful energy. It was already good enough for an ordinary surveillance treasure to be able to maintain its own state. At the highest floor, only around the suppression-type peak half-saint weapon, the violet gold dark bell, this surveillance treasure could use the suppressive force of the violet gold dark bell to resist the attacks from other treasures. This ensured that a portion of the highest floor could be seen clearly by the Songhai sect. However, the depths of the highest floor was not a place that the violet gold dark bell could protect. When Tianyong reached there, it also meant that Chun Songhai and the others had become blind. It's here. The moment he stepped into the depths, Tianyong's eyes lit up, and he could not help but open his mouth. The white and flawless bone in his hand also emitted rays of multicolored light at this moment, illuminating this dark corner. Tianyong could feel his blood pumping wildly. It was as if he had been inspired by something. This bone actually has something to do with the immortal bloodline. At this point, if Tianyong still did not know what kind of bloodline this bone resonated with, he would be a fool. Blood was the purest origin bloodline. Tianyong's origin bloodline was the pure-blooded human race, the immortal bloodline. Release! Tianyong shouted in a low voice. Immediately, a bright ray of light shot up from the spotlessly white bone in Tianyong's hand. The spotlessly white bone in a corner also resonated and flew directly in front of Tianyong. It combined with the bone in Tianyong's hand. Tianyong was slightly taken aback when he saw the perfect combination of the two pieces of bone. There wasn't even the slightest gap between them. He originally thought that this bone was from a super demonic beast or a super expert. He did not expect. This bone was actually a part of the bone chapter. Now, this bone chapter was complete, but there is still not a single word on it. Tianyong looked at the blank bone chapter, and his expression changed slightly. This bone had been tossed and turned for so long, it was impossible that there was nothing on it. In other words, Tianyong made a prompt decision, stretched out his finger, and cut a wound on his left index finger. Blood containing the power of the immortal bloodline flew out, and at the same time, the immortal fire on the wound burned fiercely. Whoosh! That drop of blood instantly entered the bone chapter. The spotlessly white bone chapter also suddenly emitted rays of golden light, and then it turned black and white. A huge and terrifying torrent of information rushed directly into Tianyong's mind. Tianyong's eyes also lit up at this moment. This bone chapter actually had something to do with the immortal bloodline. Immortal divine body, first level, immortal eyes. Chapter 1102. The first level of the immortal divine body, immortal eyes. A pair of eyes appeared in Tianyong's sea of soul, as if they were burning with the most dazzling flames in the world. However, it was only for a moment when he met those eyes. Tianyong felt that the burning flames in the eyes were about to ignite his primordial spirit. Immortal divine body? Heavenly Yang's expression flickered as he brazenly met the blazing divine fire in the eyes, allowing his Yuan spirit to show signs of fatigue. Immortal eyes? The next moment, another torrent of information flooded in. Tianyong completely understood what the immortal divine body and immortal eyes were. The immortal divine body and the immortal bloodline were closely related. Or rather, the immortal divine body was a super powerful superpower that was born after the immortal bloodline evolved to a certain level. The immortal eyes was the first part of this terrifying superpower. The ancestor of the immortal bloodline, the immortal heavenly master, was an immemorial great emperor, an overlord of thousands of races. Even if only 1/10,000th of the immortal bloodline was excavated, the superpower that could be born would be far more powerful than that of an ordinary holy martial artist. In that case, if I hadn't refined the saintly star's elixir, my physical body would have resisted the thunder test and evolved the immortal bloodline. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to meet the requirements to cultivate the immortal divine body and sense the uniqueness of the white bone. Tianyang sensed it and suddenly showed a subtle smile. The white bone didn't choose its master just because of the immortal bloodline. There were requirements to cultivate the immortal divine body. Even the first level of the immortal eyes was the same. If Tianyang hadn't evolved the immortal bloodline once before he met the white bone, he wouldn't have met the requirements to cultivate the immortal eyes and wouldn't have been able to sense the uniqueness of the white bone. He had almost brushed past the immortal divine body. That was close. Or should I say, fate? The corners of Heavenly Sun's lips curled up as he looked at the black and white bone fragment floating before him. However, Tianyang did not immediately enter the state of cultivation. Instead, he tried to comprehend the extraordinary first level of the immortal divine body, the inextinguishable eyes. After all, this was still Songhai sect's territory. Tianyang had to be on guard against people, not to mention that this territory belonged to the enemy. However, the Songhai sect has definitely suffered a huge loss. Tianyang chuckled. Although the purple gold bell was powerful, it paled in comparison to the immortal divine body, a heaven-defying divine ability. Even if the purple golden bell unleashed its strongest power, it probably wouldn't be able to suppress the immortal divine body at the same level. This value was completely incomparable. Of course, the Songhai sect did not have a single disciple with the immortal bloodline. Tianyang had profited, but the Songhai sect did not seem to have lost out either. Let's go. Tianyang was in a good mood after obtaining an unexpected and extremely powerful superpower. He did not even bother to look at the purple gold mysterious bell and went to the lowest level of the treasury. Wu Wenjie, who had just recovered, looked at Tianyang, who suddenly appeared in front of him. He was so scared that his face turned pale. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. How did you? Wu Wenjie had just uttered 3 words when he suddenly saw Tianyang's eyes that seemed to contain infinite mysteries. His mind went blank instantly. He directly fainted. What's going on? Seeing this, Tianyang was puzzled. However, he did not care and walked out. Outside, Chan Songhai and the others have been waiting for a long time. I wonder what elixir King Yang has gained from our Songhai sect's treasury? Seeing Tianyang walk out of the treasury, Chan Songhai could only squeeze out a smile no matter how much his heart ached. Since Tianyang did not choose the sect's treasure, it was not unacceptable to use the other treasures to avoid disaster. Moreover, Tianyang's combat strength was there for all to see. Even Chan Songhai was not confident that he could make Tianyang stay. He had paid the price of an unknown treasure in exchange for the safety of a future great enemy. This business was worth it. You have gained quite a lot. Tianyang glanced at Chan Songhai. Naturally, he could tell that this guy wanted to know what he had taken from the treasury. However, Tianyang was not stupid enough to tell him. Although the white bone might not be valuable to the Songhai sect at all, however, it contained the terrifying superpower of the immortal divine body and the secret of the immortal eye. Tianyang would only tell him if his brain had gone haywire. Then, congratulations to Elixir King Yang. Hearing this, Chan Songhai knew that he had been snubbed, but he still maintained a calm smile on his face. So, the Songhai sect will not stay? As you wish. Tianyang nodded slightly, and in the next moment he leaped into the air. The void-stepping secret technique and myriad movement technique, which had been cultivated to the peak, exploded at this moment. The space seemed to fold. In the blink of an eye, Tianyang's figure completely disappeared from everyone's sight. Quick, go and check. What exactly did Yang Tian take from my treasure trove? Within 3 minutes after Tianyang left, Chun Songhai's expression changed abruptly as he shouted angrily. At the same time, he had a bad premonition in his heart. Could it be that there was something in the Songhai sect's treasury that was more valuable than the purple gold bell that they had not discovered? If that was the case, the Songhai sect would really suffer a great loss. However, Chun Songhai did not know. The white bone was actually what he had found when he explored the secret realm. Unable to study it thoroughly, he threw it into a corner of the treasury to collect dust and did not record it in the treasury's catalog. Even he himself had forgotten all about it. This large-scale search was destined to be fruitless. Immortal fire, eternal eye. Flying in the air, Tianyang activated his true yuan while comprehending the black and white bone chapter in his mind. Immortal divine body, immortal eye, immortal fire, immortal force. Once cultivated, heaven and earth will decay, sun and moon will collapse, eternal eye. Mysterious words were recorded on the white bone chapter. Tianyang clearly did not have any memory of these words in his mind. However, the moment he saw these words, he completely understood. Could this bone chapter be created by the ancestor of the Tian family? Tianyang's heart could not help but skip a beat. According to the information left behind by the head of the Tian family was the direct descendant of the immortal heavenly lord. If it was the ancestor of the Tian family, then this opportunity was great. This matter should not be delayed. Let's cultivate for a while. Tianyang's expression changed. He immediately ignited the immortal fire and gathered it in his eyes. With the immortal fire, even if his eyes were burned, they would recover in 3 minutes. The Tian family did not need to worry. The moment the immortal fire entered Tianyang's eyes, boom! A loud explosion exploded in the depths of Tianyang's heart. The scene in front of Tianyang suddenly changed. He had come to an unknown world. Around him, there were mountains across heaven and earth, true dragons soaring in the sky, and giant beasts crawling on the ground. All living things worshipped, heaven and earth bowed down. Tianyang's expression changed. The next moment, he saw 4 ancient words engraved on the huge palace in the center. Chapter 11:03. Central Plains, Xianyuan. Tianyang could tell at a glance that these 4 words were ancient characters that had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years in the Xiantian Great World. Although these ancient characters had not been lost, they had long been replaced by other characters and were extremely rare in the Xiantian Great World. Even Banten Simeon was no longer used. Who knew what these ancient characters from hundreds of thousands of years ago had appeared? Could it be the creator of this bone chapter? Tianyang raised his eyebrows and stared at the 4 words. Although they were separated by layers of indistinct gauze, Tianyang could still feel the majestic aura left behind by a peerless old man who had awed the world. Although these 4 words had nothing to do with the Saint Realm Sword Principle, Tianyang inexplicably felt that his Saint Realm Sword Principle had improved a little. The person who left these 4 words behind must have already surpassed the Saint Realm. Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he came to a realization. However, before Tianyang could comprehend more from these 4 words, a terrifying suction force suddenly erupted. This drew Tianyang's attention away from him. It was different from the majestic and surging aura from before, as if it was the center of the world. This time, Tianyang saw deep darkness. It seemed to be a dungeon. Tianyang's expression changed, as if he had sensed something. He looked at a corner of the dungeon. A middle-aged man exuded the powerful aura of Wu Zun's peak LV7 realm. However, his hands and feet were bound, and his clothes were tattered. He looked like a beggar on the roadside, instead of a Wu Zun who could suppress the world. Thick black chains bound the man's limbs tightly and connected them to the indestructible walls around him. The man was trapped here until he died. This person is... Tianyang looked at the man with disheveled hair. He could not see the man's face clearly. For some reason, a strange feeling arose in his heart. The next moment, the man seemed to have sensed something and raised his head. In an instant, Tianyang's pupils contracted, and his face was filled with disbelief. This person was actually the head of the Tian family. Yang There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in the man's eyes. He looked at the pitch-black air in front of him and said hoarsely. The next moment, the flames burned fiercely. The man's hoarse voice instantly became incomparably spirited. "It's Yang," the man said in disbelief. "Why are you here?" It was as if the man's eyes could see through these layers of barriers, and he didn't know how far away they were. At this time, Tianyang was also shocked. This person is the father of this body. After the ancient era, the only existence in the Tian family to awaken the immortal bloodline. The head of the Tian family. As for the eyes that were burning with flames, they were the eyes that Tianyang had just obtained and had yet to cultivate. The first stage of the immortal divine body, undying eyes. "Tian Hao, what's wrong with you?" At this time, a disdainful sneer came from an invisible corner of the screen. The next moment, a purple-robed elder suddenly appeared in the center of the screen. "TSK, I didn't expect you to still be alive after suppressing you with the 9 nether deep freeze for almost 20 years. This bloodline, this power, it's really powerful." The purple-robed elder laughed strangely. Hearing this, the head of the Tian family, Tian Hao's face suddenly darkened. "Xianyuan Kong, I don't need you to scream here." As expected of the person that Goddess Qingming took a fancy to, not to mention other things, your perseverance alone is enough to defeat most of the younger generation of the Xianyuan family. The purple-robed elder laughed. Hearing this, Tian Hao's face suddenly darkened. His eyes were fixed on the purple-robed elder. TSK, if Goddess Qingming didn't take a fancy to you, our Xianyuan family could still cultivate you. At least, we would have another fighter. It's a pity that the goddess can't be tarnished, but you have captured her heart. You can only spend the rest of your life in the dungeon of our Xianyuan family. The purple-robed elder laughed strangely. Hearing this, Tian Hao's face became gloomy, but he didn't say anything. His eyes kept flickering, as if he was hinting at something. However, Tianyang had only arrived at this place by chance, so how could he leave? Oh, at this time, the purple-robed elder's expression changed. He looked to the side, where there was supposed to be no one. "I see. No wonder you suddenly went crazy today. It turns out that a little mouse came in." The purple-robed elder smiled slightly. The next moment, Tian Hao's face suddenly changed. "I didn't expect that Tian Hao would have guts. Your son is even more gutsy. How dare he covet our Xianyuan family?" The purple-robed elder snorted coldly. The next moment, the power of a sage-to-be erupted. Boom! Tianyang felt as if a bomb had been detonated in his mind. In an instant, that wisp of consciousness had been blasted away. Everything he had seen before, including the Tian family's patriarch, the purple-robed elder, and the Xianyuan family of the central region, instantly collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, all he could see was the scenery of the eastern sky state. However, this scenery was tinged with traces of blood. 2 streams of blood tears flowed from Tianyang's eyes. Damn it! Tianyang's genuine essence moved, and the 2 streams of blood tears instantly turned into gas and disappeared. The Xianyuan family of the central region, the Tian family's patriarch, Xianyuan Qingming, this body's mother. I didn't expect this body's parents to be in the Xiantian Great World. Tianyang's eyes flashed with shock. He never expected that his parents, whose whereabouts were unknown, would actually come to the Xiantian Great World. The Tianshao Great World and the Xiantian Great World were separated by countless worlds. Moreover, this was not the only way to ascend from the Tianshao Great World to another world with abundant heaven and earth spiritual qi. In other directions, there were existences that were not weaker than the Xiantian Great World. As it turned out, the Xiantian Great World was where this body's mother was, the place that Tian Hao, the patriarch of the Tian family, had spared no expense in killing his way to. Tianyang also sensed a faint but incomparably firm anger burning fiercely in his heart. He and this body had already completely merged into one. The Tianyang of the past was the present Tianyang. Tianyang was both the Tianji Sword Emperor and the young master of the Tian family. It seems that there's one more person on my list of enemies. Tianyang's lips curved into a smile, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. In the next moment, he rushed in a direction with abundant heaven and earth spiritual qi. The purple-robed old man's attack. Although they were separated by an infinite distance and had only shattered a weak consciousness of the heavenly sun, which was not even a remnant soul, it had still affected the heavenly sun's main body. Now, Tianyang's eternal eye had been directly shattered. If not for the strength of his immortal bloodline, his eyeballs would have been shattered. Even if he had withstood the attack, he would have been extremely weak. Shan Tian Wuzuan, the great lord of heaven, the Xianyuan family, Banten Simun, and the destruction of civilizations. Tianyang's eyes flashed with light. In the next moment, it all turned into a firm belief. What I need most now is strength. Tianyang stepped into the depths of the mountains and waved his right hand. Countless spiritual stones and materials flew out. Formation Tao that was close to the Saint Tao was unleashed. 88 layers of defensive formations, spirit-gathering formations, offensive formations. In the blink of an eye, countless formations were set up. In the next moment, light flashed in Tianyang's hand, and the bone chapter that recorded the eternal eye appeared in his hand. Chapter 1104. Looks like the people from the Tian family have guts. After destroying Tianyang's consciousness, the purple-robed elder looked at Tian Hao expressionlessly. Hearing this, Tian Hao raised his head and laughed loudly. The chains rattled and trembled continuously, as if they could not restrain Tian Hao's body that contained an incomparably large amount of power. Of course, the people from the Tian family are much more powerful than the Bulsh *T Xianyuan family. All of you, just wait for my Yang to come and settle the score with you. Tian Hao laughed wantonly. Although the power that Tianyang had displayed was far from the purple-robed elders, he was still confident in his abilities. Even so, Tian Hao was still very confident. He could not do it, but Tianyang could. The lamentation of the weak. The purple-robed elder laughed coldly. He took a step forward and disappeared from the dungeon. The mountain range that Tianyang had chosen was called the Eastern Sky State, but it was actually quite far away. It was a large state that was adjacent to the Eastern Sky State. It was not part of the eastern part of the Shantian Great World, but it still had the word East in its name. Dongling State, Westling State, Southling State, and Northling State. If these four states were combined, the Ling State would be known as the fifth divine state, second only to the four divine lands. Now, Tianyang had entered the Dongling State without Luo Yunyang's knowledge. He also did not know that countless experts from the Dongling State, Eastling State, Southling State, and Northling State were rushing towards the eastern border of the Dongling State. Their target was the mountain range that Tianyang was in. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying blood-red thunderbolts tore through the sky and violently bombarded the center of the mountain range. However, in the center of the mountain range, there was a thick formation that could not be seen. It blocked all the thunderbolts that were powerful enough to kill Wuzun. It even devoured part of the power of the thunder calamity and absorbed it into the formation. This is the fifth batch of peak grade 7 medicinal pills, right? Tianyang looked at the pill that was emitting a dense light after absorbing the essence of the thunderbolt disaster. He curled his lips and kept it in his interspatial bag. As the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden merged with the Vientiane sky ruins, Tianyang no longer had to worry about some basic medicinal herbs. However, the powerful herbs that had touched the divine path were still in short supply. Even though Tianyang had all kinds of opportunities, they were now almost exhausted. Half a year of closed-door cultivation. Tianyang's cultivation had completely stabilized. He had even broken through from Wuzun Stage 5 to Wuzun Stage 6. As for the first level of the immortal divine body, the inextinguishable eyes, he had also cultivated to a certain level. However, compared to the inextinguishable eyes of Tian Hao that he had seen in a hurry back then, it was still a little lacking. After all, Tian Hao was an unprecedented super genius of the Tian family. If he had not been restricted by the harsh environment of the blizzard state, he would have broken through to the Tao Fire Realm, the Sea of Soul Realm, and the Heaven Ascension Realm. After awakening the immortal bloodline, he had caught up and stepped into Shantian Great World, where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was abundant. Here, Tianhao's talent and immortal bloodline could be maximized. In addition, Tianhao himself had awakened the immortal bloodline a few decades earlier than Tianyang. It was not strange for him to surpass Tianyang, or rather, Tianyang's progress in the immortal bloodline was already close to Tianhao's. This was something that was shocking. After cultivating in seclusion for half a year, I refined 5 batches of peak grade 7 medicinal pills. All of them were successful and had elixir veins. Only one batch had an accident and was only of high grade. As for minor saint grade medicinal pills, I tried to refine them twice. One failed, the other succeeded. It's not bad. Tianyang smiled and withdrew the true flames of destruction, which had swallowed the heavenly ice flame and increased in rank. The current true flames of destruction was not the same as before. Compared to when it had just swallowed the true dragon heart fire, it was much stronger. Back then, the true flames of destruction had gathered the power of various flames to barely reach the 7th level. But now, after swallowing the heavenly ice flame, the true flames of destruction had completely stabilized at the 7th level. In fact, it was half a step into the peak of the 7th level. Such a spiritual fire was rare and terrifying even in the Shantian Great World, where the spiritual chi was abundant. Unfortunately, although Tianyang had such a powerful spiritual fire and his Saint Realm Alchemy Tao had made great progress, he had run out of materials. The materials needed to refine a minor saint grade medicinal pill were too frightening. Even though Tianyang had the opportunity to enter Saint Songqing's cave abode, he had used them all up after a few tries. Now, Tianyang only had a few hundred medicinal pills and one minor saint grade medicinal pill. He was practically penniless. Even the Earth Reiki had been completely absorbed by Tianyang. Otherwise, he would not have been able to break through to Wu Zun's 6th level. But it's not a loss. Tianyang chuckled. External wealth was ultimately external. Now, Tianyang had only consumed these medicinal pills and the Earth Reiki, and his true Yuan and alchemy Tao had made great progress. He had completely converted the Earth Reiki into his strength. This was what Tianyang wanted. Now, it's time to find a place to train myself. Tianyang smiled. The black underworld soul prison was deep in the starry sky. Although it was located by the all-heaven sword, it was not too far from the Shantian Great Cosmos. However, it would not be that easy for Tianyang to cross the void and rescue Shantian Wuzhuan. Tianyang would not be able to withstand more than a few blows from a half-saint, even if he used all his skills. Fighting was often the best way to train. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a series of terrifying explosions erupted. In the next moment, Tianyang instantly felt the surrounding mountains tremble. What's going on? The refining of the pills is over. Tianyang's expression changed. In the next moment, a violent and terrifying spatial energy was released and shot out in all directions. The heavenly sun just so happened to be in all directions. Or rather, Tianyang was directly below the source of the spatial energy. Damn it! Tianyang's expression changed drastically. With a flash of light in his hand, the great void sword embryo appeared. At this moment, the spatial energy ruthlessly crushed towards Tianyang. The 88 layers of protective formations shone brightly, desperately resisting the bombardment of the spatial energy. However, the spatial energy was not to be outdone. It strengthened again. Like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, it crazily broke through the defenses of the 88 layers of defensive formations. Single sword, soaring immortal. Tianyang roared. In the next moment, the great void sword embryo in his hand, which was much stronger than it was half a year ago, brazenly attacked. Boom! The collision of the Sage Realm sword principle and the spatial energy caused terrifying energy ripples to erupt. The 88 layers of protective formations were completely shattered. The spirit-gathering formation was also crushed by the spatial energy. However, Tianyong bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood, which suddenly burned. Blood dragon shatters the sky. The true flames of destruction burned and turned into a huge dragon that viciously charged towards the spatial energy. With the addition of the single sword soaring immortal, the spatial energy was finally completely neutralized. However, just as Tianyong thought that it was someone from the medicine god sect, he was shocked to discover something. There was a spatial gate above his head. On the other side of the spatial gate, terrifying, surging spiritual chi of heaven and earth constantly surged. Tianyong could feel the surging spiritual chi through the spatial gate. This is... The corner of Tianyong's mouth twitched. You're sitting at home, but treasures are falling from the sky? Chapter 1105. Violent and terrifying spatial power wreaked havoc in the surroundings. However, because the Sky Sun had already blocked all the spatial power below, there wasn't the slightest bit of spatial turbulence around the Sky Sun. There was even a space door above his head. Tianyong instantly understood. There must be a mystery land on the other side of the space door. Even if the other forces knew about the existence of the mystery land, they would not risk being swallowed by the space turbulence to force their way into the mystery land. Only he could break the space turbulence and be the first to enter the mystery land. I don't know if I'm unlucky, or Tianyong muttered. If it were someone else, it would be impossible for them to block the space turbulence and enter the mystery land alive. However, he could be the first to enter the mystery land. He could be the first to obtain the treasure. There's no time to lose. Let's go now. Tianyong smiled faintly and executed the void-treading mystic technique. He transformed into a stream of light and entered the spatial door. The moment Heavenly Sun charged into the secret realm, Heavenly Sun's eyes lit up. Outside the mountains, in places where the power of space couldn't reach, countless experts were also gathering. Dongling State. Compared to Dongtian State, Dongxian State, and Donghai State combined, this was a state that was countless times more powerful. The number of experts in this state was also incomparably large. This mystery land opened at the border between Dongling State and Dongtian State. In other words, there were not only experts from Dongling State, there were even people from Dongtian State who would come here. Is this the legendary sky market that was discovered thousands of years ago, but has never been opened? A young man, who was under the protection of an old man, muttered as he looked into the distance where the space energy was raging. His eyes shone with a strange light. That's right, the old man smiled. This sky market is not an ordinary sky market. It's the sky ruins created by a terrifying saint who was close to the holy king realm. Not only are there all sorts of ancient beasts, but there are also unimaginable opportunities. That level of existence is already comparable to the ancestor who created the myriad pill sacred canon in Banten Simeon of the Eastern Divine Land. If he obtains the inheritance in this sky market, he will definitely step into the saint path in the future, the old man said with a smile. However, he soon sighed. It's a pity that the sky market is sealed off by the four great forces. Although they can't seal off all of it, it's impossible for small cultivators like us to beat them. As he spoke, the old man looked into the distance in fear. East, south, west, north. The four major directions were controlled by the people of the various forces. In the east was a formidable power at the peak of the half-saint realm, the myriad demon palace. In the south was one of the sage sects of the Dongling State, the human sovereign palace. In the west, there was also a saint sect. However, the saint in the west was a body refinement cultivator. In the Hansha region, in the north was the strongest sage sect among the four great forces, the North Nether Cave. The four great forces were the four dominators of the eastern Dongling State. They were even the overlords of the entire Dongling State. Although individual cultivators were not necessarily weak, they were still much weaker than the people of the sects who were united and had obtained countless opportunities to increase their cultivation. This gap was not something that individual cultivators with no resources or talent could overcome with perseverance alone. However, even the leftovers from the sects are enough for us individual cultivators to improve by leaps and bounds. Thinking of this, the old man smiled and waited for the raging spatial energy to dissipate. The spatial turbulence was extremely violent. It was even stronger than the spatial turbulence on the world barrier. Wu Zun, who was in the fourth heaven state, would die easily if he entered. Even if he was in the sixth or seventh heaven state, he might not be able to pass through it successfully. Even if he could pass through it, he would most likely be injured, which would greatly affect his combat strength. The four great forces and individual cultivators were not fools. Since their competitors were here, why would they take such a huge risk and forcefully pass through the spatial turbulence? By then, even if they passed through it, the opportunities they obtained would be killed by others and their treasures would be taken away. TSK, Hansha region, don't you always think highly of yourselves? Aren't you the best in body cultivation? Why? Are you interested in our Saint Sky Market? At this moment, the leader of the four great forces, the human emperor's palace, suddenly spoke. He looked at Hansha region in the west and revealed a mocking smile. The people of Hansha region were all half-naked, revealing bronze-colored muscles that were as sturdy as steel. On the surface of their muscles, there were traces of mysterious energy flowing. The power that could be unleashed was far more than just their muscles. If they started a fight, the muscles' true origin and the terrifying power hidden in their limbs and bones would become a killing technique that would make people tremble in fear and shock the heavens and earth. The path of the strong is not led by anyone. Since there are opportunities for the strong, Hansha region naturally has to participate. It's different from the human emperor's palace, who really thinks highly of themselves and keeps to themselves. The cultivator of Hansha region spoke calmly. Although his aura was only at the peak of Wu Zun realm 7th heaven, everyone present could not help but feel a chill run down their spines. The most confusing thing about the cultivators of Hansha region was this level of cultivation. They cultivated their bodies and did not pay much attention to their true origin. It would only strengthen as their physical body strengthened. Therefore, every cultivator of Hansha region was able to fight against those of a higher level. As for the leader who spoke just now, no one doubted that he was only at the peak of Wu Zun realm 7th heaven. However, if he unleashed his full combat strength, even if Wu Zun realm 8th heaven was at the peak, he would still be able to defeat him. A bunch of barbarians. After being mocked, the leader of Wu Zun realm 9th heaven from the human emperor's palace snorted coldly and left in a huff. As if they had a tacit understanding, the strongest person sent by the four great forces was Wu Zun realm 9th heaven. Of course, in Dongling state, they were still the top fighters. The space turbulence has dissipated. At that moment, someone said with a look of shock on his face. In the next instant, the human emperor's palace moved. Let's go. The leader of the human emperor's palace snorted coldly and led dozens of people toward the entrance of Sky Market. In the next instant, the other three forces moved as well. This continued until the four great forces had entered Sky Market. Only then did the other rogue cultivators dare to move and enter Sky Market one by one. No one had expected that someone would arrive in the Sky Market 10 minutes before they had arrived. He had taken away all the opportunities around the entrance. Tianyang casually sat cross-legged in a secluded cave and counted his gains in the past 10 minutes. At the entrance, the people of the four great forces were all dumbfounded as they looked around. It was as if a typhoon had passed through. Isn't this Sky Market undiscovered? Chapter 1106. Who is it? The myriad demon palace elder, Shang Wanji, was enraged as he looked at the mess around him. No one had ever entered the Sky Market before. The four major forces had joined forces to confirm this, so there was no way they could be wrong. After all, the four major forces had investigated the Sky Market to the extent that they could not enter the place. In the place where the Sky Market appeared, there were no traces of anyone within the past 100 years other than the people from the four major forces. As for the period before 100 years, The four major forces' extremely detailed historical records did not leave any traces. It was even more impossible for anyone to enter the sky market before it opened. However, someone had taken a step ahead of them. No, several steps ahead of them, and had taken away all these opportunities. Not only Shang Wanji, but the North Underworld Cave Elder's face was also gloomy as he smashed his right fist to the side. The terrifying power of Wu Zun's ninth stage cultivation realm exploded, creating spiderweb-like cracks in the space. Damn it! North Underworld Cave Elder Yuan Tianxiong roared. Don't let me find out who it is. If I find out who it is, I will definitely cut him into pieces. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. North Underworld Cave had always been known for being cruel and overbearing. The fifth elder of North Underworld Cave, Yuan Tianxiong, was the cruelest of the cruelest. It was fine if the enemies he targeted were evenly matched, but if he caught up to them, being killed was the lightest punishment. As for the others, the lightest punishment would be to extract the soul, while the heaviest punishment would be to preserve one's life. One cut would be a gram of flesh and blood, and it would take thousands of cuts to kill a person. It was unknown how many people feared this fifth elder of the Northern Underworld Cave. Their fear of him was even stronger than their fear of others. After all, offending Shang Wanji would only result in death. Offending Yuan Tianxiong would result in a fate worse than death. Let's go. However, the body cultivators from Hansha region did not say anything. They immediately chose a direction and rushed out. Looking at the traces, there were not many people who had arrived before them. It was very likely that there was only one person. If there was only one person, it would be easy to handle. With the number of people from the four major forces, they couldn't be faster than a single person. How could they lose to a single person? Not only the Hansha region, but the other rogue cultivators also realized that it was meaningless to stay here and watch the four great forces vent their anger. They all chose a direction and flew away. Only the human sovereign palace, North Underworld Cave, and Myriad Demon's Palace were left behind. They were incomparably furious. Let's go. The people around them had already left. No matter how furious they were, they could only swallow their anger. Rather than venting his emotions here, he might as well gather more opportunities in the sky market. This was also the mission given to them by the four great powers. This sky market has such a powerful background. Tianyang slowly walked in the middle of the mountains, checking the treasures he had collected along the way. His expression changed slightly. These treasures weren't just ordinary treasures. Many of them recorded the history of the sky market. This sky ruins was called the Nine Universe Sky Ruins. It was created by the Nine Universe Saint, a supreme existence among the saints 10,000 years ago. The Nine Universe Saint did not die in the Great War against the demon race 10,000 years ago. He successfully survived the great destruction of civilization and lived until 3,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, the Nine Universe Saint had been the Nine Universe Saint. 3,000 years ago, the Nine Universe Saint had been the Nine Universe Saint Emperor. The realm after the Saint Realm was the Saint Emperor Realm. 10,000 years ago, he was already half a step into the Saint Emperor Realm. How powerful is the sky market left behind by such an existence? Tianyang muttered to himself. He had originally thought that the Wanxiang sky market left behind by the Wanxiang Saint was already the strongest in the sky market. Now it seemed like the Wanxiang sky market might be strong, but it wasn't the strongest. At most, it could only be considered slightly above average. However, my understanding of this sky market is still too little. Otherwise, I wouldn't have collected so many scattered treasures along the way. Tianyang sighed as he sorted out the bits and pieces of information about the Nine Universe Sky ruins that were contained in the treasure. The Nine Universe Sky market was like a small world. There were mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, spirits, and even a vast spirit source ocean in the distance. The size of the Nine Universe Sky market was probably half the size of the Eastern Sky State. It would be easy for it to accommodate 10 billion people. Tianyong even suspected that the nine-universe sky market wasn't just a simple sky market, but a refuge. Back then, the earthly Emperor's small world had escaped the great destruction of civilization because it was a small world. However, although it is huge, it is not easy to find opportunities. Tianyong sighed. He was at a disadvantage in this aspect. Although he was the first to arrive, the information he got from the nine-universe sky market was very limited. However, under the control of the information, it was close to zero. The ones that gained the most were the medicinal herbs that grew because of the abundant spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It's really him. At this moment, a cry of surprise that was suppressed with all its might was heard. Then, an extremely sharp fist mark pierced through space and headed straight for Tianyong. Tianyong's thoughts were instantly interrupted. His figure flashed as he dodged the fist mark and rushed in the direction of the fist mark. Oh no, I've been discovered. A cry of surprise sounded. The next moment, in another direction, a sword ray pierced through space and headed straight for Tianyong. Tianyong narrowed his eyes slightly. Vital essence condensed between his hands, and dozens of sword rays bloomed. Every single ray of sword light possessed a terrifying might that wasn't inferior to the sword light that had attacked him. What? Exclamations came from all directions. Suddenly, Tianyong's face turned gloomy. His detection ability was very strong. The moment the first person attacked, Tianyong sensed that there was more than one person around. However, now that he looked, there was more than one person. There were 7 people here. Who did I offend? Tianyong was a little depressed. However, the light in his hands didn't dissipate. A cold intent floated from the corner of his mouth. He could sense a strong, murderous intent from the 7 cultivators. No matter who he offended, since these people wanted to kill him, he would not hesitate to kill them. Then he would kill them without mercy. Whoosh! In an instant, before the first person could react, Tianyong moved. 10,000 movement techniques, combined with the secret technique, instantly bloomed. It erupted with infinite speed. What? The first person's face changed greatly. Tianyong actually discovered him, and in an instant, he appeared in front of him. Sky Sword Art, Sky Soaring. Tianyong shouted softly. Chapter 1107. Instant kill. Furthermore, it was an instant kill without any suspense. His head was sent flying and blood splattered everywhere. Under the light of disbelief, that person's eyes quickly dimmed. Due to Tianyong's soaring sky sword, it automatically carried the true flames of destruction. This person did not even leave behind a fragment of his primordial spirit. He was ignited by the true flames of destruction and turned into ashes. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Old Six, seeing this scene, the others immediately burst into hysterical roars of anger. Bastard! I'll kill you! In the next moment, a burly man in full heavy armor rushed out from the dark. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he swung the giant hammer in his hand and smashed it towards Tianyong. Boom! The space trembled continuously and exploded with rays of light. Tianyong's expression was calm as he swung his sword with both hands. He easily received the hammer strike. Even if the person who attacked was Wu Zun, who was at the peak of the 7th level state, it was still the same. How was this possible? Seeing this, the burly man in heavy armor was stunned. Tianyong's previous method of killing Old Sixth was because he was opportunistic and caught him off guard. This time, he was the one who took the initiative to attack. However, Tianyong blocked it so easily. Oh no! At this moment, the burly man in heavy armor suddenly had a premonition of danger. He immediately threw down the hammer and jumped back. Boom! An extremely huge and terrifying sword light slashed towards the burly man. If the burly man had not reacted quickly, this slash would have been enough to cut him in half. Sky Extreme, Sword Technique, 4th Sword Firmament. How can it be so strong? Although it did not hit the burly man, the traces left behind by the sword light still spread to the burly man's feet. Just a little more, and the burly man's feet would have been completely broken. Support, third brother. At this moment, An angry roar resounded through the sky. The remaining 5 people all rushed out. Someone held a bow, an arrow, and stood in the distance. The arrow, with an extremely sharp aura, was aimed at Tianyang. Someone's figure was as graceful as a phantom. He held a light, long sword in his hand and moved closer to Tianyang. Someone had 2 large sabers in his hands that were emitting a bloodthirsty red light. 5 people, including the heavily armored man and the one who was killed by Tianyang. There were 7 of them. Everyone who had besieged Tianyang before. 7 7th-tier Wu Zun cultivators. The highest among them, like the heavily armored man, had already reached the peak of Wu Zun's 7th level. I didn't expect this. Tianyang frowned slightly. I didn't expect these 7 people to be in the same group. Tianyang was confident that he would be able to deal with them easily if they were to meet each other by chance and join forces. However, if the 7 of them were in the same group, even if Tianyang had already broken through to Wu Zun stage 6, it would still be very difficult for him to break through. Fortunately, he had already killed one. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Third brother, what's the situation? The man with 2 sabers, who looked the oldest, looked coldly at Tianyang. The heavily armored man hesitated for a moment before speaking. He's tricky. What? Hearing this, the other's expressions changed. The heavily armored man was the strongest among the 7 of them. Even he felt that Tianyang was difficult to deal with. Then what should they do? However, for the sake of 6th brother and the opportunity of the medicine god sect, we still have to kill him, the heavily armored man said savagely. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he attacked Tianyang fiercely. The giant hammer in his hand was like a tiger, carrying the terrifying true energy of Wu Zun's peak 7th level as it smashed fiercely toward Tianyang. Almost at the same time, the dual sabers slashed wildly, the long sword stabbed, and the arrow shot out explosively. It was all done in an instant. Attacks came from all directions. Tianyang was in a desperate situation. Tianyang smiled faintly. Wu Zun's 6th level cultivation, the body of the Dragon King, and the power of Wu Zun's 9th level primordial spirit erupted. The incomparably violent aura instantly set off an incomparably terrifying storm in the surroundings. In an instant, saber light, sword light, and arrow light were instantly thrown into chaos. It was at this moment that the heavenly sun moved. Using the myriad Dao movement technique that had been cultivated to the highest level, Tianyang's figure was like a ghost that didn't have a body size, shuttling through the millimeters. He slashed out with his sword. The most threatening arrow was cut in half from the middle. In the next moment, before the 6 people's eyes could receive the information that the arrow was cut in half, another fist blasted out. The terrifying saber light slashed out by the dual sabers was directly annihilated by this fist. As for the last stab, Tianyang smiled faintly. His laughter was heard. Flying immortal sword. Boom. The storm dissipated, and everyone reacted. Their faces were filled with incomparable shock, and they took a few steps back. Although the storm was terrifying, the people present were all terrifying existences of Wu Zun's 7th level and above. It was not difficult for them to deal with this storm. At most, they could interfere with it for half a second. However, in this half a second, Yi Zichen's expression changed. The 3 fiercest attacks were directly broken, and the heavily armored man's hammer completely fell into the air. Where's his sword? At this moment, the heavily armored man looked at Tianyang's suddenly empty hands and was stunned for a moment. In the next moment, as if he had thought of something, he hurriedly turned his head to look. Number 4 was still there. Number 2 was still there. Number 7, the sword cultivator who previously stabbed out with his sword, was stunned at this moment. His neck was cut in the middle, and his head was completely separated from his body. One sword killed Wu Zun's 7th level. The heavily armored man's expression changed drastically. How could it be? Didn't this Yang Tian say that he was only Wu Zun's 5th level? When they attacked, It was even a battle tactic devised to deal with Wu Zun's 8th level powerful demonic beast. In the end, number 6 had died at the beginning, and now even number 7 had died. Seventh brother. Among the remaining 5 people, the oldest-looking middle-aged man let out an incomparably shrill scream. In the next moment, as if he had gone mad, he viciously attacked Tianyang. Die for my 7th brother. The middle-aged man roared madly. However, Tianyang's lips curved into a cold smile. If the 7 of them joined forces, he would still be a little wary. Now, he had already killed 2 of them. What was there to be afraid of with the remaining 5? Whoosh! With a piercing sound, Tianyang's figure disappeared on the spot. Immediately after, a continuous sword glow illuminated the entire world for more than 10 minutes. I remember that I've never seen you guys before. Tianyang's chest rose and fell slightly. He looked indifferently at the heavily armored man who was on the verge of death at his feet and said indifferently, "Of the 7 people who had besieged Tianyang, 6 had died. Now, this heavily armored man would not live for more than 3 minutes." Ha! Wealth moves people's hearts. The heavily armored man sneered and spat out a mouthful of blood. Don't think that just because you've destroyed the Iron Blood mercenary group, no one will continue to attack you. Once the Divine Medicine Pills Kill order is issued, the entire Shintian Great Cosmos is your enemy. In the next moment, the heavily armored man spat out a mouthful of blood and died completely. Chapter 1108. The Divine Medicine Pills Kill Order. Tianyang's face darkened when he heard the name. However, the heavily armored man was dead, and the other 6 had been killed by him. There was no way he could get any information out of them. Well, I guess it's something like a kill order. Let's take their interspatial bags first. Tianyang muttered and stretched out his hand. A suction force appeared, and the interspatial bags of the 7 men fell into Tianyang's hand. Tianyang scanned the bags and found what he was looking for. TSK. Killing people makes more money. Each of these 7 men has at least 50 million Earth Reiki. That's close to 500 million Earth Reiki. Tianyang muttered. He had wandered in the mysterious sky great world for many years and had never obtained more than 300 million Earth Reiki. Now, he had obtained close to 500 million Earth Reiki just by killing 7 ignorant LV7 Wu Zun realm martial artists. Although it was far from enough for the cultivation of the endless spirit sea, if he could refine and absorb all the Earth Reiki, Tianyang could at least reach the peak of LV7 Wu Zun realm, or even LV8. But the reason why this guy wants to kill me is interesting. Tianyang did not pay much attention to the 500 million Earth Reiki. To him, the Earth Reiki was dispensable. With the Vientiane Sky ruins, the Earth Reiki could only be a supplement. It was just a matter of speed. These 7 men are a mercenary group. Tianyang glanced at the interspatial bags casually and raised his eyebrows. A mercenary group was a name Tianyang was familiar with. In his previous life, when Tianyang was still weak, he had joined or followed various mercenary groups. He had fought in various mountain ranges or exchanged his blood for cultivation resources on the battlefield. Tianyang was very familiar with such creatures. In a mercenary group, as long as there were benefits, they could go out and fight. These benefits could be anything: money, beautiful women, cultivation resources, cultivation techniques, martial skills, anything was fine. The mercenary group of these 7 people was a powerful mercenary group called the Iron Blood Mercenary Group. In the entire Dongling state, they were a powerful force. However, they made the mistake of targeting Tianyang. As a result, they were killed by Tianyang, and the Iron Blood Mercenary Group was destroyed. "It's all right," Tianyang muttered to himself. Then he chuckled. "However, how much benefit do I have?" Tianyang didn't dislike mercenaries who lived on the edge of their blades. After all, he had been a mercenary for a period of time. However, regardless of whether it was true or not, as long as they provoked the Tianyang, they would still be killed without mercy. Tianyang's eyes flickered. It didn't take long for him to find the information he wanted. Do all the Wu Zun realm cultivators in the eastern part of the Shintian Great World know about the Medicine God Sex bounty? If they provide the location information, they will be rewarded handsomely. If they return with their heads, they can even enter the medicine god sect's cultivation mystic area. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up into a smile. However, there was a hint of coldness in his smile. It looks like the medicine god sect will not rest until one of us is dead. Tianyang sneered and put away all the space bags. The fact that the medicine god sect had issued such a bounty meant that they were determined to go against the heavenly sun realm. In that case, Tianyang didn't need to be polite. The 9-universe sky ruins was located at the border between the Dongling State and Dongling State. It wasn't far from the Dongling State. Perhaps someone from the medicine god sect would come. I hope you don't send anyone to the 9-universe sky ruins. Even if they do, don't be unlucky and let me meet them. A cold glint flashed in Tianyang's eyes. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he flew into the distance. He could vaguely sense a strange aura in the distance. Damn it, why can't I block this thing? A wandering cultivator in black robes roared as he held a broken sword in his hand. He had picked up the broken sword from the roadside. He had thought it would be some good refining material. In the end, the moment he touched it, it wrapped around his body like a maggot. Moreover, it was constantly releasing a powerful aura. At the very least, it was a half-sane artifact. The wandering cultivator didn't need to think to know what would happen if a 5th-stage Wuzun, a wandering cultivator with no background, obtained a half-sane artifact. It looks like I don't need to fight with the 4 factions to get a half-sane artifact. At that moment, a cold and emotionless voice rang out. The wandering cultivator's hair stood on end as he slowly tilted his head back. A person with only white bones and emotionless, cold flames burning in his eyes looked at him indifferently. Bone, bone. The wandering cultivator's teeth began to chatter. His hands that were holding the broken sword were shaking like a sieve. The person in front of him was, I'm willing to give this thing to, I just need to kill you. White Bones said indifferently. In the next moment, a strange white flame burned in his hand and engulfed the wandering cultivator. Then, he picked up the broken sword. This broken sword? Sensing the strangeness of the broken sword, the flames in White Bones' eyes flickered and quickly returned to normal. A ball of white flames ignited and enveloped the broken sword. Then, he threw it under the tattered gray robes. It disappeared. However, the half-sane artifact aura could not be concealed. There's something there. White Bones looked into the distance as the flames in his eyes flickered. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he flew out. After White Bone left, behind a boulder in the nearby mountain range, a figure suddenly appeared. A 6th-stage Wuzun was trembling all over. Bone flame? Supremacy. That's strange. Why did the aura change direction? Tianyang's expression changed. His primordial spirit sensed that the strange fluctuation had changed direction in an instant. However, not only was the position not further away from him, it was closer. It seems like they're heading to the same destination. The corners of Tianyang's mouth lifted slightly, revealing a strange smile. It was most likely a treasure on his body that had resonated with a treasure in the 9-universe sky ruins. However, he sensed that this person had not discovered him. However, he had discovered him. I just don't know what treasure caused the resonance. Otherwise, I could really consider taking a gamble. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he changed direction and rushed toward another place with abundant spiritual energy. If he was not wrong, that place was one of the inheritance sites in the 9-universe sky ruins. He used the secret technique and disappeared on the spot in an instant. However, neither White Bones nor Tianyang noticed. The broken sword shed its pale, white outer shell, revealing a trace of a strange aura. Chapter 1109. In the depths of the 9-universe sky ruins. Unlike Tianyang, who had entered by chance, the 4 great forces and some of the itinerant cultivators had made thorough preparations before entering. Although he couldn't say that he knew the 9-universe sky ruins like the back of his hand, he still had a clear grasp of some key points. If someone else had not taken the initiative at the beginning, how could we still fight with this group of itinerant cultivators? The myriad Demon Palace elder gritted his teeth in anger as he looked at the itinerant cultivators around him. Some of the itinerant cultivators had followed them. As the four great forces of the Dongling state, they naturally could not massacre the itinerant cultivators of the Dongling state. These itinerant cultivators were fearless. Although the four great forces could not be bothered with them after the battle began, before the battle, the itinerant cultivators would get a share of the inheritance points and treasures that the four great forces had found. This was the tragic state of the itinerant cultivators. Everyone knew that such actions would definitely cause the four great forces to be displeased. If they were too arrogant or unlucky, they might be hated by the four great forces. However, the itinerant cultivators' cultivation resources were obtained through blood and fire. Compared to fighting to the death in other places of the Nine-Universe Sky ruins, it was better to take the risk of being hated by the four great forces and share some of the resources with them. Every time itinerant cultivator's cultivation level improved, it meant that he had experienced many times more life and death battles. However, the Nine-Universe Boundless map is right here. Even without us leading the way, these itinerant cultivators would have sensed the aura of the Nine-Universe Boundless map and come here sooner or later. The elder of the Human Emperor Palace said indifferently as he looked at the crowd with disdain. They're just a group of lowly itinerant cultivators. Why should we care? It would be fine if this group of ants knew their place. However, if they dare to attack us, our swords are not for show. The elder of the Human Emperor Palace said disdainfully, if the leader of the great forces had allowed it, I would have killed all of them with my sword. Hearing this, the itinerant cultivators who were fighting for the opportunities along the way could not help but tremble. They looked extremely humiliated. However, there was nothing they could do. Itinerant cultivators were naturally weak. In front of the disciples of the major powers, he was the weakest of the weakest. Even if they had Wu Zun, who was a 7th or 8th tier cultivator, they were still ants in front of the four major forces. What's the point of talking nonsense with a bunch of ants? At this moment, Yuan Tianxiong spoke up from the northern underworld cave. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. Why don't we prepare the Nine-Universe's boundless painting? Hearing this, everyone's expression turned solemn. Even those rogue cultivators stopped fighting and pricked up their ears to listen carefully. The Nine-Universe's boundless diagram is a sacred treasure left behind by the Nine-Universe's Saint Emperor 10,000 years ago. Furthermore, it's much more powerful than the average saint artifact. The saint way that the Nine-Universe's Saint Emperor cultivates is not the usual sword way, saber way, pill way, formation way, lightning way, fire way, and so on. What the Nine-Universe's Saint Emperor cultivates is an extremely peculiar great way called Boundless Tao. Yuan Tianxiong sneered. This Boundless Tao is extremely mysterious. Even among the geniuses of the four major forces, not every one of them can comprehend its mysteries. Rogue cultivators with no talent should get lost if you feel inferior. When the battle starts, it won't be just one or two of you. Yuan Tianxiong sneered. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. Seeing this, even the Human Emperor's Palace and myriad Demon Palace's elders, who were of the same cultivation level, could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Yuan Tianxiong's strength was actually not much stronger than theirs. However, Yuan Tianxiong's incomparably perverted and terrifying fetishes made even them shudder when they heard about it. After being scolded by Yuan Tianxiong, a young rogue cultivator finally could not help but growl in a low voice. However, in the next moment, a ray of finger light pierced through the rogue cultivator's forehead and directly cut off his life force. However, as if it had been done thousands of times, the meridians that were responsible for transmitting pain were still intact even as his life force was cut off. In the next moment, boom, his quintessential essence exploded and his flesh was mangled. Before that person's essence spirit died, immediately, the pain almost tore his entire essence spirit body apart. His mouth opened as if he was about to scream. However, when he uttered the first syllable, Yuan Tianxiong smiled cruelly and channeled his quintessential essence. That person's essence spirit exploded on the spot, and he died an unnatural death. Many rogue cultivators who had not seen Yuan Tianxiong in action felt their hearts tremble when they saw that. Their legs trembled, and they wanted to leave first. That method was not only vicious, cruel, and powerful. The moment he attacked, the rogue cultivator, Wu Zun, who was at the peak of the 5th level, had his life force crushed. However, there were still dozens of meridians that were intact and connected to the essence spirit. Yuan Tianxiong wanted the other party to die when he was in the most pain and could not be released. It was simple, but it was still cruel. Although the 9 Universes boundless painting hasn't appeared yet, there's still plenty of fun to be had. Yuan Tianxiong retracted his right hand into his wide sleeves, and his expression returned to normal as he chuckled softly. If one did not know the cause and effect, one would think that this smile was that of a mortal old man who was enjoying the joy of a family reunion. However, it was precisely because they had seen the cause and effect that the crowd was so horrified. Shang Guanji and another elder at the side frowned. Although everything was possible in the vast thousand worlds, there were very few people who were as perverted as Yuan Tianxiong. It was even rarer to be able to cultivate to such a high level. Even experts like them, who were on the same level as Yuan Tianxiong, would feel uncomfortable sitting next to him. However, looking at the time, it should be soon. At this moment, Yuan Tianxiong stood up and glanced at the rogue cultivators who had lost 30% of their numbers in an instant. His lips curled into a smile. I hope you don't die too early. In the next moment, the surrounding heaven and earth rippled rapidly like a stone thrown into a pool of water. The surrounding scenery became incomparably distorted, and at the next moment, waves of terrifying sacred force burst out from his body. 10,000 years ago, the 9 Universes Saint Emperor was already half a step into the Saint Emperor realm. The sky market that he left behind naturally contained an extremely powerful saint energy. At this moment, the saint energy had appeared. This was the sign of the 9 Universes' boundless painting's appearance. Ha ha ha! Yuan Tianxiong laughed maniacally. That was the 9 Universes Saint Emperor's 9 Universes boundless painting. It had an extremely huge effect on his advancement to the half-saint realm. At the side, Shang Guanji and Wu Zun, who were at the 9th level of the 9 Universes Saint Emperor realm, looked extremely eager. This was a supreme treasure, a saint artifact, a half-saint emperor artifact. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Chapter 1110. The 9 Universes Boundless Diagram. A single scroll recorded the mountains and rivers of the world, the boundless sky, and the vigorous earth. Everything was hidden within. The moment the 9 Universes Boundless Diagram appeared, the surrounding area started to tremble even more violently. Boundless saintly way power bloomed from the 9 Universes Boundless picture, sweeping across the entire area like a storm. Even Yuan Tianxiong, who was in the 9th level of Wu Zun realm, had to lower his proud head. After all, the 9 Universe Boundless Diagram recorded the saint path that was half a step into the Saint Emperor realm. Everyone below the saint path was nothing but an ant. Even though Yuan Tianxiong had already grasped part of the divine path, it was still the same. This is the 9 Universes Boundless Diagram. Yuan Tianxiong stared fixedly at the mountain river painting as he felt the surging Saint Tao energy around him. His eyes flickered with fanaticism. Go! In the next moment, everyone from Northern Underworld Cave charged out. Damn it, this guy doesn't want to live anymore. Seeing this, Shang Guanji and Wu Zun could not help but curse angrily. Then, they hurriedly followed. The Saint Path storm around them was incredibly powerful. Even Wu Zun, who was in the 7th or 8th tier of the Saint Path realm, found it difficult to fly in the storm. Only the 3 of them, who were at the 9th level of the Wu Zun realm, could rely on the power of a peak half-saint artifact to fly with the people of their forces. However, the Saint Path storm wasn't very long. However, after a few breaths, the trembling world gradually calmed down. Go! At this moment, countless itinerant cultivators could not hold it in any longer and charged out. The soul fire in the eyes of a skeleton hidden in the crowd flickered and then it charged towards the 9 universes boundless diagram. After a few seconds, there was no one left in the surroundings. Too late. At this moment, a ray of light shone from the horizon. Tianyong looked at the majestic painting of mountains and rivers in front of him with some surprise. However, that feeling is still there. Tianyong smirked. It's right in front. In the next moment, his figure flashed and disappeared into the 9 universes boundless diagram. Golden Dragon Phoenix. Within the 9 universes boundless diagram. The people who had just stepped into the 9 universes boundless diagram and hadn't had time to make any preparations looked up in disbelief at the huge beast that was looking down on them. Dragon horns, phoenix body, wings with a wingspan of over 1,000 meters, burning with raging flames. The golden fire dragon phoenix was a terrifying magical beast of the 7th level, equivalent to Wu Zun's 8th level. The expressions of the rogue cultivators changed drastically. The strongest among them was only Wu Zun, who was in the 7th tier of the Golden Fire Dragon Phoenix. He could not even take one hit from the Golden Fire Dragon Phoenix, not to mention fighting against this incomparably ferocious and terrifying giant beast. The demonic beasts from 10,000 years ago, even if they had been living in the world of the 9 universes boundless diagram, were still extremely terrifying. Furthermore, due to the massive amount of saint energy contained within the 9 universes boundless diagram, it would be even stronger than the outside world. Roar! However, before they could escape, the golden fiery dragon phoenix noticed these puny humans who had suddenly appeared and challenged its authority. It opened its gigantic mouth. Then, a terrifying breath burst out from his mouth. A beast dares to show off in front of me. At this moment, a figure completely covered in a black robe walked out from among the rogue cultivators. Cold light flashed in his eyes, and he reached out his hand. He slashed out with his sword. Boom! Even the space in the 9 universes boundless diagram, which had become extremely stable because of the saint's path, rippled under the sword. The breath was split into two without any warning. It exploded into 2 fireballs in the air and disappeared between heaven and earth. Roar! The golden fire dragon phoenix paused. Its huge eyes, which were the size of 3 people, stared at the black-robed man in shock. Being able to cultivate to the 8th level of the Wu Zun's 8th level, the golden fire dragon phoenix's intelligence would not be weaker than any human of the same level. It could not speak human language because there was no one in the 9 universes boundless diagram that could speak human language. Roar! Roar! The golden fire dragon phoenix roared. It could feel the dangerous aura from this black-robed man. At the very least, he could rival it. You're just a beast. The black-robed man sneered. He reached out his hand, which was also covered in black, and grabbed a broken sword. In the next moment, his figure flashed and charged toward the golden fire dragon phoenix. Roar! The golden fire dragon phoenix roared and flapped its wings. Bursts of flames burst out from the ground, struggling before your death. The black-robed man sneered and suddenly attacked. His figure was like an illusion, but it was much stronger than an illusion. The broken sword flashed across heaven and earth, bringing with it rays of sword light. Scattered sword field. Boom! Countless flames were destroyed by this sword. The golden fire dragon phoenix's killing move was destroyed just like that. However, there was still a part of the flames that still retained their original power after being destroyed. It landed on the black-robed man. The robe made of ordinary materials was instantly ignited. Even the pure black glove was ignited by the flames of the golden fire dragon phoenix. The golden fire dragon phoenix was an ancient mutated species. Even an ordinary spiritual artifact robe would only last a second in front of the terrifying flames of the golden fire dragon phoenix. Moreover, this black robe was just an ordinary rag. In just an instant, the black-robed man was completely exposed in front of everyone. His hideous white bones were exposed. Someone was shocked as he looked at the white bones above him. For a moment, he could not wrap his head around it. Beside him, there were already people who were terrified. Goo! Supreme Goo! Boom! Before the last word could be uttered, a sharp sword light shot toward him. In an instant, a bloodlight flashed, and the person who spoke was beheaded. This, at the side, the rogue cultivator who thought he had a new lease of life widened his eyes. Brother Jiang. Boom, boom. However, before the rogue cultivator could finish his words, his head was beheaded by the sword light. This is troublesome. Ants like humans must be killed every time their identities are exposed in front of them. Bai Gu, who was also Supreme Gu Hua, held a broken sword that was burning with pale flames. The soul fire in his eye sockets burned with an indifferent light. He did not care about the lives of humans at all. The reason why he attacked was because the golden fire dragon phoenix had provoked him. Or rather, he only wanted to take care of the golden fire dragon phoenix before killing this group of humans. However, this broken sword is unexpectedly useful, Supreme Gu Hua said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the primordial spirit fragments of the 7 to 8 rogue cultivators. He swallowed them directly into his soul fire. In the next moment, Supremacy Gu Hua's soul flame grew several times stronger. Roar! At this moment, the golden fire dragon phoenix let out a long cry again and flapped its wings. Bursts of flames shot out. At this moment, in the shadows that Supreme Gu Hua did not notice, a beam of sword light suddenly shot out. Chapter 11:11. A beam of sword light slashed horizontally with a swift and fierce aura. Wherever it passed, even the impregnable space that was reinforced by the Saint Tao cracked. Under the cover of the dazzling fire, the sword energy slashed toward Gu Hua's supremacy. At this moment, the golden fire dragon phoenix's full-powered flame attack also came at him. What? Only now did Gu Hua's supremacy notice the sword energy behind him, and his expression changed drastically. With thousands of years of battle experience, he could instantly tell which of the two attacks was stronger. Without hesitation, he turned around and slashed with his sword. Boom! A horrifying explosion erupted from the point of collision between the broken sword and the sword energy. It turned into an extremely sharp sound wave storm that spread out in all directions. At this moment, the golden fire dragon phoenix's flame wing slash hit Gu Hua's supremacy's back. Crack! Even though Gu Hua supremacy's body of white bones had been refined countless times, cracks appeared on his body after being hit by this attack. Damn it! Sensing the damage to his body, Venerable Gu Hua's face immediately revealed a furious expression. His soul fire flickered, and the bones on his face began to change slightly, becoming even more ferocious and terrifying. He had dominated the spiritual state for 3,000 years, slaughtering cities and countries, and killing millions of people in the blink of an eye. But he had never been injured like this, not to mention that he was not ambushed and was killed. It's you. Gu Hua's supremacy instantly locked onto Tianyang, and his soul fire burned with resentment as he roared furiously. His voice seemed to have a strange tone. When he spoke, even the surrounding space trembled slightly. If someone with a weak will heard Gu Hua Venerable's roar, they would immediately be bewitched and seek their own death. However, Gu Hua's supremacy's trick was useless against someone with a strong will. As for Tianyang, it didn't even have the slightest effect. Wu Zun Realm Level 6. After all, Gu Hua's supremacy was a powerful existence at the peak of Wu Zun Realm Level 8. His expression changed when he sensed Tianyang's powerful aura. The already distorted face of the skeleton became even more distorted. Being ambushed and injured was already a great humiliation. In the end, the person who launched the sneak attack was a 6-stage Wu Zun that could be crushed to death with one hand. Die for me. Reverend Gu Hua let out a furious roar. Violent, murderous intent bloomed, and pale white flames turned into waves of fire that swept toward Tianyang. At the same time, the broken sword in his hand began to emit rays of light. In an instant, the surroundings seemed to have changed. Scattered sword domain. Reverend Gu Hua shouted angrily. The pale flames merged with the scattered sword realm and instantly formed a terrifying killing move. Netherbone golden fire. At this moment, Tianyang also noticed the terrifying pale flames, and his expression changed slightly. spiritual fire of the seventh step. In the next moment, the wave of fire spread to Tianyang's body before the sword light. Idiot, after recognizing the netherbone golden fire, you didn't retreat immediately. Instead, you stood there without moving? As expected, a 6th-stage Wu Zun is still an ant. Even if you succeed by luck, you will still die. Reverend Gu Hua looked at Tianyang, who was instantly set ablaze by the pale flames and turned into a white flaming man, with contempt. An ant is still an ant. In front of him, only death awaits. Unfortunately, the fallen sword domain had been used in vain. Interesting. At this moment, a chuckle was heard. In the next moment, a black light flashed. The pale white flames burning on Tianyang's body seemed to explode, exploding in all directions. The flames splashed and landed on the ground, burning a few 100 feet deep hole in the ground. As for Tianyang, who was set ablaze by the netherbone golden fire, he was completely covered in flames. At this moment, he was completely enveloped by the black flames, standing in mid-air, completely unharmed. How is this possible? Reverend Gu's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He looked at Tianyang in disbelief. The netherbone golden fire was a 7th-stage spiritual fire with the strongest single-target destructive power. Within the flames, there was the power of withering, and death. Back then, his physical body had been destroyed because he had forcefully refined the netherbone golden fire. He could not find it even if he wanted to. Now, the netherbone golden fire that he had almost died to refine was extinguished so easily. However, this isn't the only trump card I have. Reverend Guhua quickly recovered and laughed coldly. The broken sword in his hand burned with the pale flames again. At the same time, countless lightning bolts surrounded it. Scattered sword domain. He slashed with his sword. Rays of sword light descended like lightning from the 9 heavens. They even carried a firestorm formed by the netherbone golden fire. Tianyang's expression changed slightly when he sensed the terrifying sword light. Reverend Guhua was very powerful. Compared to any Wu Zun that Tianyang had seen before, Reverend Guhua was much more powerful. An immortal level was nothing compared to the Songhai sect's Wu Zun. Before Tianyang went into seclusion, he could exchange 1 or 2 blows with Reverend Guhua. Now that he had gone into seclusion, his strength had improved greatly. It was easy for him to deal with the immortal level Wu Zun. However, Reverend Guhua was completely different. This guy has mastered a domain. Moreover, it's a sword domain. Tianyang's eyes shone with a shocking light. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and the secret skill of air step was unleashed. His terrifying speed soared to the extreme. Before the sonic boom could be heard, Tianyang's figure was in the center of the sword light. Is this guy stupid? Reverend Guhua could not help but be shocked when he saw this. In the next moment, his expression changed. Massacre domain, Tianyang shouted. Instantly, everything around him was dyed with a layer of demonic blood red. The sea of sword light and thunder seemed to have turned into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Even the sun shone with a circle of demonic purplish red. Surging killing intent that made one's heart tremble surged and spread in all directions. The great void sword embryo in Tianyang's hand became much sharper. Reverend Guhua's soul flame was also dyed with a layer of blood red at this moment. Kill! Reverend Guhua roared. His killing intent was released violently. He did not care about the sea of sword light and thunder that he had just unleashed and charged toward Tianyang. Streaks of killing intent gathered on Tianyang's sword. He slashed out with his sword. 10,000 swords in origin, heaven and earth perforation. In order to hide from the attack of the golden fire dragon phoenix, the power of the attack was not considered strong. Otherwise, Reverend Guhua would not have just broken a few bones. At this moment, Heavenly Sun Sword was merciless and extremely powerful. Falling blood sword wheel. Reverend Guhua roared ferociously. The broken sword in his hand shone with rays of blood-red light as he slashed toward Tianyang.